Good evening, everyone. It's 6 p.m. and I open the reconvened meeting from last Wednesday. I'd like to welcome those people in the public gallery, all those watching at home and those present in the chamber, be they councillors and staff. I'd like to start by saying Kaya Wanju Mali Budja. The City of Swan acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land in which we meet tonight, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and their descendants. As a result of last week's meeting, I'm going to make the following announcement. At our last council meeting, I was required on a number of occasions to address the conduct of some members in the public gallery in attendance. While you're in the public gallery, I ask you to remain respectful of the council and other members in the public in attendance. Please do not talk amongst yourselves or interject with comments. When this occurs, it's difficult for councillors to hear each other, and it can also be distracting when they're trying to form arguments in debate, and this can cause disruption and reduces efficiency to the meeting. I had several complaints from councillors last week after the meeting, and I've also had further emails complaining about the noise coming from the public gallery, and tonight I was advised that some people looking at the live stream couldn't hear it properly because of the amount of clapping going on. Tonight we have a large amount on the council business to get through. If there's any conduct of this nature again this evening, I'll be asking those responsible to leave the public gallery, so this is your warning. There will be no further warnings. Please also be aware that noise in the outside waiting areas carries into the chambers, so if you wish to have a discussion amongst yourselves, please move downstairs or outside. The City of Swan meeting procedures local laws outline the behaviour expected by members of the public and elected members, and my role is to preserve the order of the meeting. I also ask elected members to support me in preserving the order of the meeting by being respectful to your fellow councillors. If you have a point of order, please clearly state what that point of order is. If another councillor arises a point of order during your debate, the councillor debating must take your seat until the point of order has been dealt with. Differences of opinion are not a point of order. Thank you. Moving on to item 2, attendance and apologies. Councillor Podovnik will be attending electronically, and I've approved that in accordance with Regulation 14C of the Local Government Administration Regulations. And Councillor Parry is seeking approval of council to attend the meeting electronically in accordance with Regulation 14E of the Local Government Administration Regulations. Councillor Parry has advised he's in a suitable place as defined in the regulations, and I'll need a resolution. Move Councillor Kiley, seconded Councillor Knight. Is there anyone against Councillor Parry attending electronically? Being no one against, I declare that carried unanimously and welcome you to the meeting. Thank you, Councillor Parry. Staff attending electronically will be Mr Bishop, Miss Lay and Miss Pickering. Leave of absence, nil. Is there any further apologies, Mr CEO? None that you know of?
None, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. We'll start tonight's meeting, councillors, where we left off. It's in Part B, item 4.1, consideration of submissions, proposed amendment 201 to Local Planning Scheme number 17, further additional use of a garden centre to additional use in Stirling Crescent in Guildford. It's on page 103 of your agenda, councillors. And Councillor Howlett, you have a motion?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So my motion is that the Council resolve to 1. Note the submissions received on the proposed amendment to number 201 to the Local Planning Scheme number 17, and 2. Concur with those submissions from surrounding residents as to potential adverse impacts from the operation of the garden centre, and so modify the proposed amendment in the following manner. 1. Modify condition 1 to read, only dry fertiliser product is permitted to be stored and sold from a garden centre. 2. Modify condition 2 to read, no garden centre shall be permitted to use the street verge for parking or for the purpose of a loading zone or service deliveries. 3. Insert a new condition 4. The operation of a garden centre on the land shall be set back 2 metres from the eastern side boundary. 4. Insert a new condition 5. No machinery or equipment associated with the operation of a garden centre shall be operated prior to 8 a.m. on any day. 5. Insert a new condition 6. All water associated with the operation of a garden centre shall be kept wholly within the land and not create, I'll remove the word A, I think that's in there, not create structural impact to the building's heritage significance. And then 3, forward the amendment so modified with the schedule of submissions to the West Australian Planning Commission with a request that the Honourable Minister for Planning grant approval to the amendment and its gazettal. 4, advise those who lodged a submission of Council's decision accordingly. And the reason I have given is to address concerns submitted through the public consultation period and as heard through public statements.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Johnson. Is there anyone against? Question. Councillor Congdon.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My question is to Mr Russell. Insert the new condition 5. No machinery or equipment associated with the operation of a garden centre shall be operated prior to 8 a.m. on any day. Is there a State Government Noise Act that this would override?
Through Mr Mayor, there is the Environmental Protection Noise Regulations 1997 that govern the creation of noise in this instance, so you'd be in any event required to abide by that separate to whether this condition existed or didn't exist on this approval.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Kiley.
Question. I'm just interested in the process here through you, Mayor. If staff could elaborate on where it goes next after the recommendation from Council, and whether the WAPC would take it upon themselves to make any changes as they thought necessary.
Mr Russell, if you can answer, thank you.
Yes, I can. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Whatever decision the Council makes this evening, the amendment is then forwarded to the WA Planning Commission, and the Department of Planning staff will produce a report that will go to a committee or the full body of the West Australian Planning Commission. They will make a recommendation, which being a scheme amendment will be in the nature of a confidential recommendation that the public or anyone else will not be able to see, and that recommendation will be considered by the Honourable Minister at her leisure, whereupon she will make a decision either to support the amendment as submitted without modifications or support it with any modifications she deems fit, or to refuse it for reasons she will provide. Whichever of those options she chooses to deliver, that is the end of the matter, and there is no recourse to any appeal in the state of Western Australia on that ministerial decision.
Satisfied with that answer, Councillor Coley?
I have an amendment, Mayor, if it gets to that.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to ask for, I've got a mover and a seconder. I'm going to ask now, is there anyone against? You wish to debate it, Councillor Henderson? You've got 5 minutes to start your debate. Thank you, Councillor Howlett.
Basically, I've covered everything that I think that I need to cover in regards to the conditions, addressing the concerns of the community. I've received lots of emails. We've had public statements. I'm quite confident that the scheme amendment will pass, but I wanted to be sure that we could address those concerns in some way to the local community. The post-day business is very well regarded from a lot of people outside of the area. From those inside Guildford, perhaps there are concerns, and this motion is about giving attention and consideration to their concerns and addressing it in a way that we can move forward with the business operations and making it clear that we've heard the community.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson as the seconder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Well, the conditions all come from community concerns, and I've heard a lot of these over the years. I've been receiving feedback, shall I say, from the community since I first became a councillor in 2015. There have been many complaints about, shall we say, odours coming from the garden centre from people whose homes are against the eastern fence, and that is why we have a condition here. about the operation of a garden centre on the land shall be set back 2 metres from the eastern side boundary, and also we have only dry fertiliser products is permitted to be stored. So if these conditions are adhered to, it would be reasonably certain that nobody's sort of storing any smelly organic fertiliser directly against the fence. See, the issue here, councillors, is that most of the land that is used in that garden is used for a cafe. So the owner has to attempt to separate out the cafe operations with the smelly fertiliser, if it exists, and some people say it doesn't, some people say it doesn't, from the actual operations of the plant potting operation, which uses fertiliser. So what that means is that, according to the community, the plant potting operation using the allegedly smelly fertiliser is occurring right hard against the eastern fence, and I believe there are 3 modest-sized properties there with fences that are directly adjacent to the fence. The other reason for the setback is that one owner who uses his backyard for work, as I've mentioned, is quite common these days. A lot of people sit out, have an outside office. Is finding that the operation of the garden centre is a bit disruptive. So a 2 metre setback seems quite reasonable, given that previously the owners, when they bought the land, had a quite enormous setback. And the other item: no machinery or equipment associated with the operation centre of a garden centre be operated prior to 8 a.m. Well, what's been raised to me on many occasions is that the owner operates a leaf blower every morning, and that's extraordinarily noisy. And that is one of the key issues. So no earlier than 8 a.m. I actually think that's quite mild. I think that we ought to be when this comes before us as a development application, we need to look more carefully there. The other complaints I've received on several occasions from the Petanque Club, when they used to use the maybe they do, maybe they don't. At one time, they were using the grounds of the Mechanics Institute for Petanque. They said that the game was being ruined by the amount of water coming out of the garden centre. And this was actually the very first complaint I ever had. I was a bit perplexed by it. Little did we know that the garden centre didn't have an approval. So that's the reason for that one. So there's concern that water is impacting on the Petanque playing. It's also impacting on the heritage building, being the Mechanics Institute, which we all agree is an important building, but so is the post office building itself, so that needs to be protected too. So that's the reason for these conditions. I think they're all very reasonable, and they're all based on fact, and I congratulate Councillor Howell on coming up to speed on all of the various issues relating to postage so quickly and efficiently. So, councillors, I can really commend these conditions to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker against the motion. What's your amendment, Councillor Kiley, please?
They're on the board now for everybody to see. My amendments are in 2 parts. The operation of a garden centre shall not negatively impact upon the heritage listed building, and with the addition also of the operation of a garden centre shall be subject to an operational management plan.
So I take it that you're adding, so this would become items 3 and 4, and then 3 and 4 as current would go 5 and 6. Is that correct?
I'll take your word for it.
Well, I'm just trying to, it's your amendment.
Maybe 2, 6 and 7, Mr Mayor,
6
as
and
conditions.
7. It'll be 6 and 7 there.
Under number 2.
So it'd be 2, 6 and 7?
Yeah. 7 and 8.
Well, we've got up to 5. Oh, new condition 6, so it becomes 7 and 8. I think the minute clerk's done it an exceptional job and numbered them accordingly. Okay, with those 2 amendments, are they suitable to the mover and the seconder?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Sorry.
Yes.
Yes, to both. You had a query, Councillor. A further amendment, Councillor Congdon? Well, I'll just say that there's no objection from the mover and the seconder. They become part of the substantive motion. You've got a further amendment, Councillor Congdon. What is that?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. After the commentary by our planner is to delete number 4, new condition 5.
So that's to delete no machinery or equipment associated with the operation of a garden centre should be operated prior to 8 a.m. on any day.
Correct, as it complies with the West Australian Act, Noise Act.
Is that also agreeable to the mover and the seconder, because there's state legislation which covers noise?
Ideally, I'd like it left in there because it indicates that we have recognised that noise is a condition, noise is a concern to the community, but I do understand that it is superseded by the state legislation. So
are you agreeing to the amendment or not?
I would not agree to that amendment.
Okay, Councillor Johnson is a seconder.
Don't agree with it either.
You wish to debate it, Councillor Congdon? If I get a seconder?
No, it's fine.
No? Okay. So you're withdrawing your amendment? Thank you. The amendment's been withdrawn by Councillor Congdon. I'm now up to the stage where I'm asking for a speaker against the motion. Councillor Henderson, you've got 5 minutes for your debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, I will be foreshadowing the officer's report, and perhaps some of the amendments that have been considered additionally might be added to that at that time. I can't agree with, at this stage, considering it's going to the Minister for approval and determination. I can't agree to, in particular, the limitation on time. In the summertime, usually it's good to get out at probably 5 or even 6 o'clock to do watering because you don't want to be watering during the warmer parts of the day. I think that in itself is an important aspect to conserve water. In respect of the water condition number 6, clearly the owner's got to look after the heritage value of the property, and the issue about number 2, the parking, is dealt with under our parking regulations. So again, I don't see that as being applicable to this proposed scheme amendment. So I think we can get down to the basics and undertake an amendment. The Minister may want to consider alternatives. However, I think our responsibility is to assess it, which we've done. Council the report in the Council agenda basically has gone through the process, and I think we should work to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaking for the motion, Councillor Kiley.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, I encourage you to vote for this Councillor Howitt's motion with all of the pieces in there, with my 2 amendments as well. What this comes down to is we won't be making the decision. It's not up to us. It will be up to experts within the Minister's office and the Department of Planning to go through the items that the considerations we've put into this motion, or Councillor Howitt's put into the motion, and they will work through one by one the issues that we've raised. And effectively they are just issues. Some of them may be ultimately removed from the final scheme amendment, but if we at least highlight the concerns of the community that have been raised over a long period, then we are better off highlighting these concerns than not highlighting them at all. The Minister's office will sit down and go, well, clearly there are concerns about this development, this approval. Council is sending us a message about all of these issues to do with noise, to do with parking on the street, operating on the verge, a whole range of things. The heritage listed building, which needs to be considered in this whole process. The potential damage for water, the tree plantings that are in the vicinity of the heritage listed building, a whole range of things. But at least we're flagging to the department, to the Minister, that there are concerns about the operation of this building. And let's just operation of this business or a garden centre on that site. And bear in mind that this is currently zoned residential. It's not commercial. This is residential. So it will abut It is abutting and has been abutting a residential area, residences within Guildford who have been affected, and we've heard from them, councillors. They've come to council to complain about the noise, the smell, the visual sight lines through fences and the like. So all we're doing is sending it off to the minister. Let them, as experts, rework it if they deem necessary, but at least we're sending them a message that there are concerns around it. But at the end of the day, it's not going to be our decision. They will rework it. They will come up with the most appropriate scheme amendment that would suit that operation of a business. But again, we're just flagging issues going forward. So please support Councillor Howlett's motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker against the motion? Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Knight.
Yes, just briefly, I'm going to support this motion because I think the amendments are common sense. The noise one, 8 o'clock start, I think that's perfectly reasonable in a residential zone. I've been impacted in the past by a commercial operation moving next door to me, and it's not much fun on the weekend when they're making noise early. So at least this gives the proprietor an indication that you can't make noise early, and they don't have to use a leaf blower. You can actually use a broom or something to clear up. So, yeah, I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Howlett, you've got 3 minutes for your right to reply. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I don't have much more to add. I think Councillor Johnson explained very well to you all what those additional conditions raised by the community are for. Essentially, I just want to see good neighbours, everybody getting on, and I think if we can raise these additional conditions as an indicator of what would create good neighbours, then I think that's important. As Councillor Carley mentioned, it's not that we have the control over this, it's simply flagging areas of concern in our community. So please support my motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm now going to put the motion. Those in favour of Councillor Jones, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Kiley, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Congdon, myself, Councillor Knight and Councillor Richardson, the motion is Councillor Prodovnik has got a hand up. I can't see either of your hands, Councillor Parry. You're not voting in favour? Okay, so I'll just do that count again. Thank you. It's Councillor Jones, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Kiley, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Congdon, myself, Councillor Prodovnik, Councillor Knight and Councillor Richardson. The motion is passed 10-5, and those against were Councillor Bowman, Councillor Parry, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Henderson and Councillor McCulloch. Thank you. That takes us to the next item, councillors. It's item 4.2, proposed Kingsford Town Centre Precinct Structure Plan and various properties in Bullsbrooks on page 125 of your agenda, and we'll have a proposed motion from Councillor McCulloch. Thank you, Councillor McCulloch.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Proposed motion. Council resolved to 1. Adopt the officer recommendation subject to the following amendment to the modifications. C. Part 3.8 additional information 2 to read. 2. The applicants work with the traditional custodians to formulate a plan and concept design for the Kayatmunga Brook and surrounding open space that best acknowledges the significance of Indigenous cultural heritage of both the brook and open space.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Jones. Is there anyone against? Do you wish to debate it? You wish to debate it? That's fine. Councillor McCulloch, you have 5 minutes to open your debate. Thank you.
May I reserve my right to speak, Mr Mayor?
You may. Councillor Jones.
It's pretty straightforward, Mr Mayor. It's just involving the traditional custodians to formulate a plan for the brook. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker against the motion, Councillor Catalano.
Thank you. The reason why I'm opposed to this is because actually I'm opposed to the structure plan. And the main concerns I have are those raised by the Department of Education, those raised by Main Roads, and I'm also concerned that there's no consideration in here for built form taking into consideration the future heating of Perth and the lack of public transport. Now, the thing is, I understand that there's a big rush to get this happening and everybody wants it and everybody wants to get cracking on with it. But we're going to have 30,000 extra people in Bullsbrook and another 30,000 extra people in North Ellenbrook. That's 60,000 people. And if we don't get this structure plan right, we're going to end up with some serious problems down the track. And they're problems that are going to come back on this council. Now, the whole issue is that we've got these suburbs, you might want to call them suburban sprawl, but they're outer metro suburbs. And it was first recognised in the 1990s that there's some serious problems when you develop so far from the CBD and you don't put in the appropriate infrastructure. Quite serious problems develop for those people living out there, and also for the sustainability, the viability and the success of those communities out there. Now, this was supposed to have been dealt with back in the 1990s, but guess what's happened? Nothing. We've just had more and more urban sprawl. And, you know, right across Australia, there's articles after articles going on about how urban sprawl has become a nightmare for communities, for people living in those outer suburbs. The suburbs that are, that are an hour away from the CBD, where people actually work. They can't get to work unless they're in a car. These suburbs, so basically people spend their whole lives toing and froing in their car. They don't have time to actually really integrate into the community. So anyway, that's that problem. So that's why we've got to get it right. So that actually these suburbs being so far from the centre need to be successful, they need to be sustainable, they need to be integrated, they need to have all the infrastructure there before the 60,000 people move in. So the main problem is we've got main roads. They want to know where the roundabout is. How are people going to get out of this town site onto Great Northern Highway? Now, Great Northern Highway, it appears to me, hasn't had any money spent on it in absolutely years. So we've got a lot of people who have to drive their cars to get to work of a morning and come back of an evening, right? And there's no roundabout that's been, there's no private land, it's going to have to be private land, there's no roundabout that's been, or land that's been allocated or identified for that roundabout. That's like, it is like right up there as one of the biggest infrastructure aspects of making this town centre successful. How are people going to get in and out of the town site? Now, the second thing is Department of Education. There's land allocated there for a primary school in the structure plan, as we see it in the report. And that primary school is located right next to the shopping centre. Now, the argument goes, well, OK, they agreed with it in the first place, so too bad, too sad. Do you know what? There's good reasons why the Department of Education has brought out these draft operations policy 2.4 planning for school sites and livable neighbourhoods, have also put this together, that they don't want children next to shopping centres because, what's there? Takeaway food, junk food,
you have 1 minute
and what have you. So then the other thing is that this primary school doesn't have 3 roads around it, which, well, we've all seen what happens when there's not enough drop-off points, when there's not enough pick-up points. So the Education Department aren't happy about it. So Perth is no different from anywhere else in Australia. There's a place in Melbourne where they say that the people are the least happy in Australia for the very reasons that I've outlined tonight. And basically, we need to do better. Australians deserve a better future, and if we don't design for a changing climate, dwellings will, and with the infrastructure, dwellings will ultimately be uninhabitable, and we know that this is worse in areas of disadvantage. And this will be an area of disadvantage if we don't provide the infrastructure. And as far as I can tell, there's a rush to get this town centre approved without all the proper infrastructure in place. And I just want to say, finally, it's not a one-off. Because, you know, Dayton, that suburb in Altone that I represent, that's still half finished. Still half finished right now. And people are constantly complaining. And, you know, it's half finished, but we're still pushing on further out and further out.
Thank you, Councillor Catalano. That's your 5 minutes. Speaker for the motion, Councillor Bowman.
Mr Mayor, this is a town centre precinct only. It's not everything else, so we're just dealing with the town centre precinct. Mr Mayor, I wish some of our other developers have taken a bit of an interest in what Kingsford's doing, because some of our other suburbs would be a lot better looking. They've done a great job so far. The structure plan to me for this town centre precinct is excellent. Councillor Catalano talked about the school. I wish I had schools that I went to that would have this sort of planning. There's 2 roads, yes, not 3 roads, but remember, there is another driveway which goes into a car park into the oval area. Wouldn't it be fantastic? We talk about school car park problems, and I know all about it, being a dad that drops off and picks up at schools, having that area where we can park. And then across the road, there is more parking at the commercial site. Mr Mayor, development's happening. Bullsbrook wants this. Bullsbrook needs this. I say let's get on and do it, and I'm quite happy with what's been proposed.
Thank you. Speaker against the motion.
Got a question, Mr Mayor, if I may.
Question, Councillor Johnson.
Question through, Mr Mayor, to the planning officer. See on page 222 of the agenda, section 9, it says that the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage, Aboriginal Heritage, saying there's a section 18 consent. And I guess the first question, is that still valid given that the law has changed recently? Or is going to change?
Through Mr Mayor, I believe that that is still valid, yes.
The next question is, have we actually done any direct consultation with the traditional owners?
Through Mr Mayor, I can't answer that question on behalf of Oakland.
I think that's the subject of the amended section by Councillor McCulloch. Councillor Johnson, is the applicants work with the traditional owners?
Well, I guess the question is, has that already happened? Surely it should have happened already.
This is in relation to the concept design for the quay at Munga Brook and surrounding open space, so I can't tell you if that's already happened, but the amendment is to make sure it happens from now.
Okay, so it looks like it's not happened. Okay, thank you.
Any other speakers for or against the motion? Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm against the amendment to the modifications purely for the reason that the motion lacks a plan and detail for who is responsible to ensure that this motion is carried out. Is it the City of Swan who will consult with the applicants and with the traditional owners so that we don't ensure that we don't have a repeat of the Lloyd Street Bridge incident?
Well, you have to read the motion or the amendment, Councillor Richardson. It says the applicants to work with the traditional owners. Any other speakers for or against? You're speaking, Councillor Johnson?
I'll speak to it. Yeah, Mr Mayor, I actually think that it's great that we're going to work with the traditional custodians, and if only that we're taking such care to talk to the traditional custodians or traditional owners on some other areas. The real question for me, though, is how come they've not already been consulted with? As we know, these Section 18 processes don't appear to work. And it would have been great to actually see in here direct consultation, traditional owners. What do the traditional owners think? And I think the other question is, who are the traditional owners at this location? I do know that it's generally kept confidential so that their privacy is respected, but I think that it should have been done. So my view is I don't have a particular issue with the proposed motion by Councillor McCullough, because something's better than nothing, but I'm going to vote against the whole thing because I actually think that it should have consultation with the traditional owners. If this kite at Monga Brook is important to the traditional owners, it should have already taken place. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers for or against? Just hang on, Councillor McCullough. You want to speak now? I'll just check. You gave up your right to open the debate, so I think you can only have a right of reply. Councillor Kiley, do you wish to speak for or against?
Against this one, but not that I have any problem with it, and I thank Councillor McCulloch for putting this forward. It is a step in the right direction. It is a move that would improve the overall outcomes of the design, but I do note that Councillor Catalano has included point 4 in her alternative motion, and I will be not supporting Councillor McCulloch in this instance, although I commend her for including it, but I will be instead supporting Councillor Catalano's motion, which has a range of considerations that she's obviously put some thought into, and I will be supporting that instead. So thank you to both councillors for your input and thoughts, but I think we can do better. I think we can go further and ensure that the concerns of main roads and the like, the Department of Education, are taken into consideration by this council too. So I won't be supporting Councillor McCulloch at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers, councillors? Then before I hand back to Councillor McCulloch, I'll enter the debate and ask the Deputy Mayor to chair the meeting while I do. Thank you. I support the motion. You heard last week from a representative of the Kingsford Estate program that their number one request from resident is, when are we getting our town centre? And I think that needs to be taken into consideration. That's what the local residents want. The other thing, I think it's very unrealistic for Councillor Catalano to say that you need all the infrastructure in place for 60,000 people before they're allowed to go in there. No development I know of has ever done that. Usually there's trigger points at which times the school will start when you get so many students there or so many younger people there. We had a deputation, and I've been out to Kingsford, and a number of councillors have. We had a 2 or 3 hours walking around, looking around the estate, and to be honest, I was very impressed. And I said to the owners of the development site, I said, if we had more developers like yourselves, we'd have a lot less problems going forward. So I support the amendment of Councillor McCulloch. I've read the officer's recommendation, which she supports, and I'd only encourage you, let the developers get on with developing their town centre, which is what the local residents want. They are very good developers. They want the best for their residents. This will be staged over the next 10 to 15 years, Councillor. It's not going to happen overnight, and I think it's very unrealistic to say that all the infrastructure needs to be in place before they can let people move in. So that's my few comments, and I'll hand back to you, Councillor McCulloch, for your right of reply. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, it was a simple amendment which just ensured that we had the Kayat, Mungabrook and that surrounding open space considered when we look at ongoing and further consultation with Indigenous owners. Councillors, this is a significant town centre. It has taken years, decades, to consider and to find a plan that will work uniquely and significantly for Bullsbrook. This town centre precinct structure plan is going to give us 5 character areas: retail, main street, service and commercial and residential, education and recreation. Approximately 385 new residential dwellings. It's going to generate a population of approximately 1,100 people. Gives us provision.
What's your point of order, Councillor Richardson?
This doesn't relate to the amendment here. We're talking about the town.
Well, I'm sorry, Councillor Catalano's
custodians and about
Councillor Richardson. I'm ruling that you have no point of order. Someone could have objected to Councillor Catalano mentioning places in Melbourne. It wasn't about the amendment. It's about the whole officer's recommendation, which Councillor McCulloch said, adopt the officer's recommendation with this one amendment. So you have no point of order. Please continue, Councillor McCulloch.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Gives us provision of the public primary school site and a general commercial zone and a total of 4.42 hectares of public open space. Now, Mr Craig Graham of Kingsford spoke to us at the agenda forum, councillors, and did restate that the highest priority for the existing...
Point of order, Mr Mayor.
What's your point of order?
It's not responding to debate. So Mr Smith didn't speak in the debate here. So Councillor McCulloch needs to respond to what councillors have said, not what deputies have said. Councillor McCulloch appears to be reading the speech that she would have given out.
Ruling you have no point of order, because I, in fact, said there was a deputation last week by the developers, and I couldn't remember the name of the presenter, and that's why I didn't say it, because I'd forgotten. But quite rightly, I said that they attended last week and told us their number one issue was to get the town centre in. So please continue, Councillor McCulloch, you have no point of order. So I'll just remind councillors again, please, unless they have a point of order, and it's under clause 5.2, the key points must be either relating to offensive, misleading or false information, or have relevance to the debate. And none of those points of order raised so far have been on point, so please continue, Councillor McCulloch.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As I was saying, the highest priority for existing and new residents is the delivery of the new town centre. As a resident of Bullsbrook myself, I look forward to this development and can see the benefits to every part of our community. Mr Graham also spoke to certain details where councillors had raised questions and have raised questions in debate this evening. Councillors, it was stated that the list of modifications as contained in the officer recommendation have already been actioned in relation to the precinct plan, and you had a copy there for your info. There were 2 items yet to be finalised, as they involve consultation and a response from state government agency, and that is Main Roads, WA and DFES. So those 2 things are in situ. The project team is in ongoing liaison with Main Roads and DFES and seeking to finalise these matters as soon as possible. But also, these items will be actioned at the subdivision approval stage as per all the stages that Kingsford have completed so far. So, councillors, we have got a structure plan before us.
You have 1 minute left, thank you.
We've got this structure plan right. There is no hurry. There has been no hurry. There has been great consideration, and there will continue to be great consideration for the Kingsford development. We've seen the successes so far, and we've seen the contentment and the outstanding positive feedback from our community. So, councillors, officer's recommendation as I've said, my amendment and the officer's recommendation, I urge you to support. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. I'm now going to put it to the vote. Those in favour of Councillor Jones, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Congerdon, myself, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Henderson, Councillor McCulloch, Councillor Podovnik and Councillor Parry. The motion is passed. I make it 10-5. Those against were Councillor Catalano, Councillor Richardson, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Kiley and Councillor Knight. Thank you, councillors. That takes us to the next item on the agenda. It's item 4.4, State Administrative Tribunal, reconsideration of a single house outside the building envelope on Litchfield Parade, Jane Brook. It's on page 276. There's a proposed motion by Councillor Howlett. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Okay, so my proposed motion is that the council resolve to not approve the application for a single house located outside of the building envelope at lot 2160, number 139, Litchfield Promenade, Jane Brook, and 2, record the reason for changing the officer's recommendation is development of a single house outside of the building envelope at lot 2160, number 139, will adversely and negatively affect the amenity of the neighbouring property, number 135 Litchfield Promenade.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Knight. Is there anyone against? There is. Do you wish to debate it?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Howard, you've got 5 minutes to open your debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, last year at the Ordinary Council meeting on October the 13th, this very same application, well, not this same, but the application came before us, and the Council voted near unanimously, which is 13-1, to refuse the application for the following reasons. The shift in the site of the building envelope will result in a reduction in amenity to the adjoining property owner at number 135 Litchfield Promenade, detracting from the semi-rural nature, bringing the dwelling in close proximity to their own, a significant departure from the approved Jane Brook Local Structure Plan 2. And the addition of a long gravel driveway will result in increased noise and dust from vehicles travelling close to the neighbour's boundary. Since then, a mediation meeting was undertaken by the applicant with SAT, and the applicant has subsequently resubmitted with amendments for the Council's considerations, and these are now included in the considerations in the submission we are considering tonight. The revised plans following mediation have sought to reduce the amenity impacts of the proposed development by way of landscaping, that being screening vegetation in the form of 8 Australian cottonwood hibiscus on the affected neighbour boundary, adjusting the angle of the garage and driveway to address the potential nuisance lights of headlights, and the internal driveways to be sealed. However, the proposed 2-storey single house and swimming pool remain unchanged, leaving the large home and infrastructure completely outside of the defined building envelope and in close proximity to the private family areas and children's bedrooms of the neighbouring dwelling at number 135 Litchfield Promenade. The owners of number 135 specifically designed and positioned their family home to have the children's bedrooms and family areas face away from the defined building envelope of lot 2160, as was shown in the Jane Brook Structure Plan. The proposed driveway is approximately 150 metres long, which is over 5 times in length, or 5 times longer than if it were leading to the defined building envelope. It will run along the boundary fence, running closer to their home, will be the longest in the estate, and the steep incline will create significant car noise directly outside the children's bedrooms and the family living areas. I don't believe enough measures have been taken to counteract the negative effect of amenity. The planting of 8 non-West Australian cottonwood trees, sealing the driveway and re-angling the garage, I don't believe they address the negative proximity effects on the amenity of the neighbour's property adequately. On the Highland Range Development WA webpage it says, at Highland Range you'll have room to enjoy your own property. And then in the Highland Range Design Guidelines it says, the estate is surrounded by nature and is your chance to create a peaceful, private and picturesque sanctuary of your very own. It is a new estate for those wanting to escape the pull of the city without leaving it behind. With expectations like this, you can understand why the location of a neighbouring dwelling is hugely important to maintaining the integrity of those statements. Councillors, the approval of construction of this home outside the building envelope that was clearly defined in the contract of sale for number 139 will have a significant impact on the amenity, privacy and rural characteristics of the neighbouring dwelling at number 135, and I urge you to support my motion and continue as you decided at last time it came before Council and not to recommend. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Knight as a seconder.
Thanks, Mayor. The City of Swan Local Planning Policy POL-C-080 building envelopes. In the objectives, Objective A is to provide for the orderly development of land and through the use of building envelopes. D is to ensure suitable site conditions for development within building envelope, and E, minimise the visual impact of buildings on the landscape. Does this application conform to that? I don't think it does. I don't necessarily agree with the option of moving building envelopes, but it has to be with agreement from affected neighbours. If neighbours have already built, then I think it's probably too late, as in this case. The affected neighbours bought the property when building envelopes were clearly identified, and they set up their property under the impression that the building envelope of 2160 was to be located as per the plan. So they've put their septic tank, utilities, aircon units on the northern side of their house, which is the side of the planned building envelope of 2160. So they could use the other side for their living area. So they've orientated the living areas to the south and the west, foregoing the important northern aspect, which is important in house design. If this is approved, they will then have the double hit of losing the northern aspect and having the applicant's house right in the middle of their view, contrary to E and the objectives of the City of Swan local planning policy. Had they been aware of the potential building envelope change of their neighbour, they could have changed the design and had a more desirable northern aspect. The prior city view, which seems to be a big issue up in Litchfield Prom, is not an issue because you can't see it because all the trees are in the way. So I sympathise with the applicant regarding the difficulty in building in the original building envelope, and I'm not saying that he didn't do his due diligence, but there's not an excuse to move the envelope, not buy, then seek to amend the agreed conditions. If this application is approved, the revised proposal of the sealed driveway and hibiscus screening trees will not be in keeping with this unique area and would have a big negative impact on the neighbours and their visual amenity. This is about fairness as much as anything, and I think the city should get behind neighbours that are affected by these developments or the applications, because they've done nothing wrong here. So I would urge you all to vote for this motion, please.
Thank you. Speaker against the motion, Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. This application is in a subdivision in Jane Block with a very large block size and great views. It's about halfway up the Darling Scarp in Jane Brook. Now, councillors, we've seen a steady stream of DAs come to council, and the reason is it's a new subdivision. And what we're finding is, as this has been going on for, I don't know, a couple of years now, every new landowner who's already built seems to be upset about some aspects of a neighbouring build. And I guess one question we have to ask ourselves is, do those people who have built first, do they have a greater right over the people who have built, who are coming to build later? And of course, that's what the building envelopes are all about. Now, I'm of the opinion that in this particular subdivision, we should, as a general rule, accept the officer's recommendation, unless there's a very, very good reason not to. In this particular instance, we have a family, they bought a beautiful block and they want to build a new home. Now, councillors, those who've been up to Jane Brook, and trust me, I've been door knocking up there, it's very steep. The land is very steep up there. And as a result, the landowner wants to build on another less steep part of the block. But they can do so respecting the city policy on building envelopes. Now, the policy in a landscape zone restricts the envelope to no more than 10% or 4,000 square metres, whichever is smaller. What it's about is about making sure that buildings are not spread all over the block, but instead are contained within a 10% envelope or a 4,000 square metre area. Now, within other constraints that include setbacks, that building envelope can be anywhere on the block. So you could put it if this was the block, you could put it anywhere as long as it's not too close to the edge. It's not about saying it's in that position, it can be anywhere. The idea is to constrain the building to a small portion of the site to retain the landscape value for those people looking in from outside of the entire subdivision. It's got nothing to do with the neighbour next door. That's the purpose of it. So there's no planning reason why the owner cannot choose to site the building envelope anywhere that meets the rules in the policy. That's what Poll 18 is all about. It's not about saying it's in a fixed position. It can be anywhere you like, so long as it obeys the rules. Now, there are also building envelopes designated in the contracts for sale. However, these are completely different. It's just a dotted line on a plan that's probably been put there by a salesperson. They're not enforceable by council. They've got nothing to do with us at all. It's up to the subdivider to enforce a condition of sale. So if the subdivider says, I want people to build in these specific locations where I put my dotted red line, It's up to the subdivider to enforce that with the person who's purchased the property. It's a condition of sale. It's got nothing to do with planning. Now, the condition of sale is contract law. It's got nothing to do with this council. We are not a court that's sitting to determine a dispute over contract law. It's got nothing to do with us. And I think you may recall during the agenda forum, Mr. Russell made that exact point. If council falls into the trap of enforcing the building envelopes produced by the subdivider, which are not part of the planning rules that we're enforcing here, then it's a trap. We shouldn't be doing that. So that's why I don't think we can possibly support this. Now, the applicant has been reasonable, has offered to change the alignment of the drive, seal the drive and plant some screening trees. They've actually listened and they've made some changes. And you've got to remember these are two families, they need to be treated equally. Now, the final thing for me, councillors, is wouldn't mind you turning to page 278, and I'll do it myself. So on page 278, it says...
You have 1 minute left, thank you, Councillor Johnson.
The distance between the proposed dwelling and the existing dwelling on number 135 Litchfield Promenade is 44 metres, it's the second bullet up from the bottom, which is about the same distance, 48 metres, between the existing building envelope on number 139 and the neighbour's dwelling. There's only 4 metres in it, so it's almost the same. So there's no reason to oppose this. We're not here to support contract law. We're here to enforce planning law, and this proposal is entirely consistent with the policy. So, councillors, I believe we should enforce the officer's recommendation, support the officer's recommendation on this one, and that's why I'm opposing Councillor Howlett's motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion.
I'd like to speak to this motion.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Brodovnik. You've got 5 minutes from when you start speaking. When you're ready.
Okay, I'm speaking in support of Councillor Howlett's motion. And as Councillor Howlett said, Council rejected this application in October last year, and the changes made by the applicant still don't significantly reduce the impact on the amenity of the neighbours who are opposing it. So the revised plan, they don't address the impacted neighbours' concerns about noise, the fact it will detract from the semi-rural nature, or the fact the driveway in the house will be too close to theirs. The proposed design also means the impacted neighbours will be surrounded by a road and driveway on 3 sides. The design is also a significant departure from the approved Janbrook local structure plan, and approving it doesn't send the right message to our ratepayers. If approved, Lot 2160 would be the only home in the estate built entirely outside the defined envelope. Every other home in the estate is either within or partially within their defined envelope. The current building envelopes were created to help protect the environment while allowing homes to be built. Sticking to the defined building envelopes as best we can will create a better planned estate. Please support this motion to not approve the application.
Thank you. A speaker against the motion. Councillor McCulloch.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, in the mediation, the revised plans for this single house, 139 Litchfield Promenade, seek to reduce the amenity impacts that were raised of the proposed development by way of landscaping and modifications to the internal driveway and garage. The modifications to the original proposal are listed in our report. The internal driveway is now sealed. The screening vegetation in the form of the cottonwood hibiscus trees have been determined. The internal driveway alignment has been amended to allow for planting of screening trees. The garage angle has been amended to address potential nuisance light associated with car headlights. The driveway angle has been amended and turnaround provided to respond to and address light nuisance from car headlights. Part of this, when we're speaking about building envelopes, they are there and they are a direction of a developer, and it's something that developers are stepping away from. This current building envelope is a particularly unsuitable location, and if we're talking about, yes, there might be a predominant number of houses within or partially within their envelopes in this area. But this envelope is a little bit more challenging. It consists of a gully where natural overland flows are concentrated. This factor, combined with reactive natures of the soil in that highland ridge estate, and I spoke to some engineers in regards to this and gained a little bit more understanding, and the presence of granite rock outcrops, and yes, when you build, granite outcrops are not fun, in that current building envelope location would require extensive earthworks to construct a single house and also require a 4-metre retaining wall. It's also interesting to note that the original envelope also contains approximately 10 native trees. They are regrowth, but they are up to 4 years old. And initially, reading back through the plans initially for this development, the numbers of growth or older growth trees that presented and were confirmed as foraging sites for black cockatoos were removed. So again, the gully in this envelope, the fact that we already have these now established trees again there, which I would hate to see removed, pertain to it being much less practicable to build in this area. Councillors, with specifically building in that area, we're looking at more retaining to respond to water issues, and we're seeing that that could be a possible consequence down the track. So, councillors, I do encourage you to look at the mediation that has gone before us, to consider that and those specific things that address amenity and other aspects, but to continue to look at the environmental aspects. These gullies in builds and in envelopes present significant issues, not just for the built form on top of it, but for waters and heavy rainfalls after the fact, once a house is built. And combined with the fact that I don't want to see 10 trees that are well on their way to being established and making another difference across that area removed. So, councillors, I encourage you to not support Councillor Howlett's motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion, Councillor Bowman.
Mr Mayor, no one owns a view, but everyone wants the best view. Who should have the right of way? The person who builds first or the person who waits to see what else is built? That's not the issue here. There was a building envelope, and that building envelope told everyone else that's where this person was going to build their property. As we've heard, there's a number of other applications that have built within the building envelope, just a little bit outside. This is actually saying, we don't like this building envelope, and as Councillor Johnson said, the 4,000 square metres, it was there, we want to put it all the way there. The unsuitable location. Well, councillors, I'm sorry, but buyer beware. When you buy a block of land with a building envelope on it, you actually look at that. Now, that could be, it reminds me back in my local government days, a small country town where they were selling blocks cheap because it was gravel road. The people would buy the blocks cheap and then complain to the local government they got a gravel road and the local government had to pay for bitumise. How do we know that this wasn't a cheaper block? Again, councillors, what they're building, where they're building, you need to actually look at the land you buy. If it is in an unsuitable spot, perhaps you need to change your design. We heard at the deputation that they hadn't looked at any other ideas. They hadn't looked at any other solutions in that building envelope. Councillors, I'm against any application that goes completely outside the building envelope, and I'll be voting in favour of this recommendation.
Thank you. Speaker against the motion. Any other speakers for or against? And Councillor Howlett, you've got 3 minutes for your right of reply, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll keep it brief. It's less than 18 weeks ago this came before Council. The site challenges raised by Councillor McCulloch existed then, they exist now. You all voted against recommending approval for the build. the changes that have occurred through the SAT mediation, whilst they do go some way to addressing the neighbours' concerns, the fact of the matter is the building envelope, or the building submission is going to continue to be outside of the building envelope, and I urge you to support my motion.
Thank you. I'm now going to put the motion of Councillor Howlett. Those in favour, raise your hand. I have Councillor Jones, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Kiley, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Congdon, myself, Councillor Knight, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Richardson, and I have 2 against, which I believe is Councillor McCulloch and Councillor Johnson. The motion is carried.
Through you, Mr Mayor, can you count my vote as well for Councillor Howlett's motion?
Sorry, and Councillor Parry, which way are you voting? For the motion. So for the motion is also Councillor Brodovnik and Councillor Parry, which makes it 13-2. Thank you, councillors. Sorry, I neglected to look at the screen because I was looking at everyone else in the chamber. Councillor Congdon, you've got a proposed motion.
I have, Mr Mayor, thank you. Council, I've got a proposed motion that Council resolve to amend the order of business to 9 point to bring 9.1 Councillor Johnson Lloyd Street Bridge concept design forward, the revocation motion, and items in Part B 6, 10, 4, 7, 4, 8 and 5, 2. So we can do all of those items in the event that we go over time tonight. Those others can be moved to another form of the agenda.
Thank you. I'm looking for a seconder. Second, Councillor Kiley. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, and just for the sake of the people in the public gallery and those watching, we're now moving to item 9.1, Lloyd Street Bridge Design Concept. Thank you, Councillor Johnson. I'll just give everyone a moment to get to the right page in the run sheet, including myself. It's on page 26 of the run sheet. Thank you, councillors. When you're ready, thank you, Councillor Johnson.
Okay, thanks, Mr Mayor. I assume I don't have to read out the entire motion that I want to revoke. Can we take that as read?
I'll take that as read, and if you move to your revocation motion, please.
Okay, there's been a slight modification to it. So I'm going to need to read it off the screen because it's changed slightly. So if the
Well, I like what I see, Councillor Johnson, on item 1.
I need to see the reasons. Yeah, I need to read out the reasons. I've added an extra reason. I'm not quite sure what the motion looks like now. So here we go. All right. Okay, so I'll start. So yeah, I've given notice of a motion to revoke the decision in regard to item 5.1 Lloyd Street Bridge concept design, which was held in part 1 of the meeting. And the reasons for the notice of motion to revoke are: the motion that was eventually passed was not on the run sheet and was not seen by council until just before it was read out. The motion is not in line with the Reconciliation Action Plan or the wishes of the traditional owners. The motion is internally inconsistent as it endorses a design that the traditional owners do not want and yet asks for their continued involvement in the design. The motion seeks to place Aboriginal artwork and heritage interpretation on the bridge that has been rejected by the traditional owners. The concept design of the bridge is completely converse to the objectives of the 8 recommendations provided in a way forward final report into the destruction of Indigenous heritage sites at Yukon Gorge, October 2021. And 6, the state funds will not be withdrawn if a new concept design is produced.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Catalano. I'll take this. Councillor Knight, you have a question?
Can I just put an amendment on the reasons, please?
What's your amendment?
that we cannot vote for the bridge as too much information for council too much misinformation for council to consider.
I'll just
seeking an amendment to the actual revocation, or is he asking Councillor Johnson to add another reason for your reasons for the revocation?
I think it was a reason. I'll just take some direction from the governance officer whether you can add reasons to another councillor's motion.
It's up to Councillor Johnson.
Did you understand the...
I've got a question about whether it's appropriate to write too much misinformation for council to consider.
It's up to you, councillor. You can accept it or reject it.
Yeah, look, I'm going to reject that because I don't understand the scale of it.
So, do you wish to withdraw your proposed amendment, councillor?
Yeah, I'll withdraw.
Thank you. Okay. You wish to speak to your motion, Councillor Johnson?
I'll speak briefly, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. When you're ready.
Mr. Mayor, councillors, I've put forward this revocation motion primarily because I think we need to think more deeply, more carefully and for longer about the Lloyd Street Bridge. The motion you voted for, you only saw about a minute before it was read out. To make a decision that is completely contrary to our reconciliation action plan, biodiversity strategy and strategic community plan surely requires more deliberation than what we had earlier in the meeting. I don't even recall a recent briefing on the Lloyd Street Bridge other than the main roads briefing that I think was held last year, when they told us it was our project and the traditional owners did not want the project. We also need to get the facts straight about the funding for the bridge. So on the 2nd of March, as advised in the Echo, and as we all heard, the Mayor advised us that if we do not approve the bridge concept design, there will be funding shortfall of $34 million to be funded by the taxpayers. And that's what it says in the Echo just there. I presume they've got that right, but that's what I heard at the time. And Councillor Prodovnik, who moved the motion, obviously believed that as it appeared on her Facebook page. So it's reasonable to believe that a number of councillors sincerely believed at the time of voting that they thought that if they voted for one of the two earlier motions, that we would lose $34 million worth of funding. But today, we heard from, we saw in the West Australians that finally this situation has reached statewide attention. Ms Safiotti said that state funding of $13.3 million would remain on the table if the bridge was redesigned. Now, it goes on to say in here, several councillors raised the point that if the controversial bridge design was not approved, it could be scrapped because the redesign could cost tens of millions of dollars. Well, it's not the case, councillors. So I think we voted based upon a fundamental misapprehension. Remember, Mr Ken White MP has also advised that the Commonwealth funding will not be withdrawn. So all the funding is going to be there. So if Council voted for the Council resolution that it voted for because councillors thought the funding was at risk and we were going to lose $34 million, then an incorrect decision was made because of incorrect financial information. Just moving on to the traditional owners. If we truly believed in reconciliation with the traditional owners, would we not at least take time to meet with them and get a briefing directly from the traditional owners? Surely reconciliation would mean actual listening and taking time to negotiate a solution that would satisfy everyone, traditional owners, business owners, residents, ratepayers and electors. And we've heard from lots of them. We received substantial correspondence from the traditional owners just before the meeting, and should we not take time to read that and understand it and meet with them? Councillors, why would we endorse a bridge concept design that no one wants and then give it to the state government as a project? Why should we take the heat for the poor design and then give it away? It kind of doesn't really make any sense. So we're left having done all the damage, but without getting the control of the project. Surely a better way forward will be something like this. You'll notice that my Part B does not specify something. It is to defer this until April. A better way forward would be something like this. Endorse a Lloyd Street Bridge in this location, not endorse the main road's Lloyd Street Bridge concept design that we have, and perhaps we could hand the project over to the state government, or we could set up a council committee. We could find some other way forward. Whatever forward, we need more discussion in a less constrained environment. We need a proper report where we can understand what the options are. So if we were to hand it over, it would have the benefit that the state government is responsible for any budget increases and council is not responsible for the damage to the wetlands and the rock shelter. Councillors, it's not that hard. If we went the other way and we decided to keep the bridge as a concept, as our own project, we could come up with a new concept design inexpensively for about $100,000, and then we'd find out what the true cost of the longer span bridge would be, and then we could go to the Commonwealth Government as it's election time and ask for the funding. And then if they say no, well, we can go back to the existing bridge design. Councillor, we need to look at our options. It's not that hard.
You have 30 seconds left. Thank you, Councillor Johnson.
I've got that much, Mr Mayor. I've got 3. If this revocation motion is passed, the next motion is to defer this item until the next meeting so that councillors' motions can be considered. You can put your own motion in, too, for consideration have been included. We could have a briefing or a workshop at which options are considered. Surely the most important decision in 30 years deserves a proper report, not a decision made on the fly without an officer's report. So, councillors, please vote for this revocation and for the proposed deferment. We're not going to lose the money. We owe it to the electors, residents and ratepayers and the traditional owners to look at a better way forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Catalano is the seconder.
Thank you. Well, the article says it all. Council confusion. And I believe there was a lot of council confusion last week. And first and foremost, how did this motion suddenly appear from nowhere when council hadn't even seen it before? And yet it appeared, Mayor, from what you were saying, that you were going to support Councillor Predovnik's motion, that you actually knew about it. But that's by the by. The fact is, there's definitely confusion and there's definitely conflicting information. And yes, thank you. This $34 million that ratepayers are going to have to pay and going to have to fork out, or is it $20 to $30 million? Oh my God, we can't possibly let that happen. But where did that figure come from? The Echo newspaper. Because you know what? I never got any notification at all. Because in fact, when I asked Main Roads how much they think the project is going to cost over and above what's already budgeted, they didn't know. They said, we can't tell you that. We don't know. It depends on so many factors, how the infill's going to settle, labour costs, material costs. I mean, they could... So more. That was just the start. That's just one of the bits of misinformation that we were dealing with last week. That was unacceptable. Then, of course, we heard previously last year at the November meeting that, no, it can't be changed, the plan can't be changed, Main Roads say it can't be changed. Well, Main Roads refuted that. Then we've got this issue now about the state government wants to take over the bridge. And I think we had the Mayor tell us the state government wants to take over the bridge. And then back to the Echo again, the minister's saying the Mayor, and this is in quotes, the Mayor, Deputy Mayor and CEO met with me on December the 9th and asked me to provide an assurance that the state government would take control of the Lloyd Street Bridge into the future. Apparently the minister quoted as saying that she was asked to take control. Yet when I asked the CEO, the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor, if that was the case, that they had asked the minister, they said no. So what do I make of that? It's complete and utter confusion. We've got no traffic modelling. We haven't got the Jacobs report because what are all the claims? All the claims that we've had about this traffic, about this bridge easing traffic, or will it be actually adding to the traffic? I don't know, because I haven't seen the Jacobs report. For some reason, I've got to make a decision about this bridge, but I don't have all the information before me. I mean, goodness me. Then we just talk about the 70 mature trees that are going to be felled. I mean, more than mature, they're ancient. So how old are these trees? How old are these trees that are going to be knocked over for this infill? Guess what? Nobody's even bothered to find out. So now we have lack of information to add to the confusion. So how about we get some idea about what kind of environmental values we're destroying? How about I have that information before I make that decision? How about you have that information before you make that decision? That's responsible. That's responsible. How long are the seedlings that's apparently going to be planted, how long before they'll contribute to our environment in the way that those trees down there now contribute? Where's the comparisons?
Yeah,
Where's
1
the
minute
facts?
left, thank you.
Once again, no information. That's how the decision was made last week. Now, this article here, they refer to pressure tactics intended to encourage approval. Scaring councillors with insufficient information, or perhaps is it confusing or conflicting information? Use it or lose it. Already been debunked. A bridge or no bridge. When an environmentally and culturally responsible bridge is built, that too will be debunked.
Thank you. Speaker against the revocation motion. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Howlett.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to speak in support of the revocation motion, and I'd like to echo Councillor Johnson and Councillor Catalano's comments when it comes to confusion, conflicting information, lack of information. I joined council, I was elected to council in October, which is a very privileged position, and I take my seat on council with full respect to the community. That includes business people as well as members of the community. And I want to make the right decision, but I feel that I'm not able to do so if I don't have information provided to me. It is a major project. I'm seeking transparency for everything. I don't know why we received some traffic modelling the Tuesday night before last Wednesday's council meeting. It's very hard for me to digest that information quickly. And I shouldn't have to. It's a really important project. It relates to the environment, and I know that you all care for the environment, councillors. Councillor McCulloch, you just lamented about the fact or the possibility of 10 trees being removed from Litchfield Promenade. We're facing the prospect of 64 mature trees being removed from the Helena River floodplain. Councillor McCulloch, you also had unanimous support in your motion regarding the protection of the Western Swamp tortoise, which is a fabulous motion, and I supported that as well. However, this bridge design, this concept will bury the habitat of the long-necked turtle that populate the billabongs at Helena River floodplain. Councillor Parry, Councillor Congerton, the Emu Swamp in Balladura. I know that you've posted about how important it is to ensure the natural beauty is restored for future generations, and it is. I know that it's important to you. Councillor Zanino, you talk about tourism with the Bells Rapids lookout. The Helena River floodplain could become an incredible tourism project. Councillor Kiley, saving Kiara bushland. You commented that in this day and age, government should appreciate the value of this habitat and preserve our native flora and fauna, take necessary steps to do so. I know you care about that. Councillor Henderson, you voted against Bitutech to preserve the rural environment of the Swan Valley. I know that you care about the environment. Councillor Bowman, you're advocating for the protection of the habitat at the vines and the wildlife that populates that. And Councillor Prodovnik, you've got a motion forward tonight about saving a special piece of Woodbridge parkland to come under the city care. I know you care about environment. So in saying that, I urge you to stop, reconsider the environment when it comes to this special piece of land, and support the revocation motion so that we can ensure that we have a new concept design bridge produced that is the best that we can produce. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Knight.
Thanks, Mayor. This is an excerpt from page 37 of our agenda from the Reconciliation Action Plan, which states, the strategy proposes a greater involvement by Aboriginal people in decision making and better coordination between federal, state and local governments. Every meeting that we come to here and every official event has a welcome to country. But this is nothing more than tokenism if we're not actually listening and genuinely consulting with Aboriginal people in good faith. Now, I understand that there will be differing views on Council about the consultation process. We had many emails and testimonials from the traditional owners that said they weren't consulted adequately. Main Roads will probably say different, but I know that after a 200-year history of governments, corporations and industry consulting with Aboriginal people in this country, when large sums of money are involved, we can only speculate on what really happens, and we have to draw our own conclusions. Traditional owners don't want this bridge because they don't want to see 160 piles driven 20 metres into the Helena River. And I'm pretty sure that they don't want to see tokenistic Aboriginal artwork on the bridge that could somehow be perceived as giving the bridge their approval. Herbert Brofo is a traditional owner, and he is an Aboriginal elder, and he's had challenges that were hard for us to imagine, I think. I've heard him speak on 2 occasions recently. The first was at the opening of the Wheat Park in Midland, and the second at the Helena River protest. And on both occasions, he said something that's really stuck with me. And I'm paraphrasing, but he said to the people gathered, he said, this is your country now. This is used to be ours, but we've been moved on. You're the custodians now. You're the ones that have to look after this place. And that's pretty profound to hear. This is someone whose ancestors walked into this country like 30,000 years ago. 2,000 or 3,000 generations before him that lived here. And in the space of 2 or 3, he's in this position saying, you know, it's not his country anymore. Councillors, we're the custodians now. It's the 15 of us here, as well as the wider community. And it's up to us to ensure that this place is protected. But how do we protect it? By walking away from it and giving over the responsibility to a higher authority? How do we turn our backs on a section of the community because of political expediency? I called Ken Wyatt's office yesterday, and I know council have sent emails to the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs, but no answer so far. So it seems that we're going to be turning our backs on the traditional owners, and so is the federal government. As well as the traditional owners, the wider community needs to be heard. We want a bridge that will not destroy the Helena River floodplain. We've got one chance to get this right. If we give up control, how are we going to ensure that it's designed and built to our specifications? This decision is bordering on, I don't know, recklessness, carelessness, I don't know. Councillors, we took an oath when we became councillors to act in the best interest of ratepayers. So how are we going to do that if we cede control? At this stage, we don't have the information required to make an informed decision. We're still waiting on the Jacobs traffic report. Midland is going to have a perfect storm of road closures in years ahead. Robinson Road will be closed. Helena Street will be closed when Midland train station is relocated. The Lloyd Street Bridge will funnel just as much traffic into Midland as it takes out. There's so many unanswered questions. If we cede control, we're relying on faith that Main Roads knows what it's doing, and it might be a big leap. Councillors, you're all intelligent people here, and it bothers me when I hear these straw man arguments.
You have 1 minute left, thank you.
The building of this bridge. No one has given a compelling case why we should build a bridge in the first place, either here or from the few deputations in favour of it. Mayor, you stated on at least one occasion that the bridge might be good for the environment because it will save journey times and therefore reduce emissions. But you completely omitted to mention the carbon emissions embedded in building the bridge in the first place. The production of concrete is one of the biggest greenhouse gas emitters in the world, and we are supposed to be transitioning to net zero emissions. So it's not just transport and electricity that produce carbon, it's things like this. So how do we know we are going to get the best environmentally friendly bridge, the most sympathetic bridge for the Aboriginal people and the best bridge for Midland if we're not part of the process? Councillors, please do not give this bridge to Main Roads. We need to be on it, and we need to be the ones making the decision. This motion gives councillors to get on the right side of history, and your community is counting on you to do this.
Thank you, Councillor Knight. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors. Councillors, the traditional owners have made it clear that they believe that their views have been misinterpreted in the consultation undertaken by the MRWA. The traditional owners were very clear that the billabongs were to be protected and there was to be no pylons in the river or floodplains. The City passed a motion to include the traditional owners in consultation, and we can still write this. The City of Swan failed to undertake its own consultation, and that would be in stark contrast to the core principles of the RAP, which was just endorsed by Council. Mr Mayor, members of the gallery and those watching on live stream, tonight we're here to consider a revocation motion. So the 5 key points underpinning the key issues in that document for the public record: the Council at an ordinary Council meeting on the 6th of June 2018 endorsed the development of that City of Swan reconciliation plan. And the key corporate document acknowledges the City's ongoing commitment to working collaboratively with the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and acknowledges them as the traditional custodians of the lands of the City of Swan and their continuing connection to the land, the waters and community. The RAP, as a key corporate document, acknowledges the City's ongoing commitment to working collaboratively and that connection to the land, which we must advocate for. The City's vision for that reconciliation is a community that work together to foster culture of respect, empowerment and inclusion. And the City will build capacity of the community and organisation by working together to commit, act and celebrate and acknowledge our shared story. The RAP development was to engage with traditional owners, elders and key Aboriginal stakeholders and the broader Aboriginal community, and the City's intention to develop that RAP and who to involve, ensuring the equitable participation. It was to develop an external advisory group represented by councillors and the City of staff to lead the development of the RAP. It was also to conduct workshops with the external advisory group and key stakeholders. The City of Swan has not conducted any consultation with that working group, the Lloyd Street Bridge Aboriginal Elders, currently. The City's vision for the reconciliation is a community that works together with all people to foster a culture of respect, empowerment and inclusion, and this did not occur. Councillors, we have elected councillors who volunteered to be part of that RAP process. At the time, we had Councillor Lucas, who's now the Mayor, Councillor McCulloch, Councillor Prodovnik, and as yet, I asked for and requested copies of the minutes of meeting for any of those meetings that the RAP joined and any conversations that were regarding the Lloyd Street Bridge, and yet we have to wait till next week for some of those answers. Those councillors that were voted in and accepted this role to represent the views of the traditional owners voted last week against the bridge. Councillor, I was there at the sod turning ceremony on Friday, a fortnight ago, with Minister Saffioti, myself, Councillor Lucas, Councillor Bowman and Councillor Jones. There were questions asked of Minister Saffioti. She was honest and blunt and said, "If you want me to take the bridge, you just say and I'll take it." And I responded, "They won't let you do that." That was my recollection of the conversation. There was confusion in that group. I saw 5 people stand in that group asking questions that yet had not had answers. We then received those answers on the Tuesday before last Wednesday night's meeting. Not at any point did she say she would take the bridge. It was left sitting on the shelf for us to make that decision. Councillors, the feedback from traditional owners who attended the 2 or 3 consultations with main roads in the field was fed back as 2 4 to 5 hour consultations in the field, and the third was with MRWA, showing the traditional owners the concept plan on a piece of paper on the bonnet of a car. Would we do this with other traditional elders in the City of Swan? No.
You have 1
Mayor
minute left.
Lucas, the Minister has already told you that the Council make the decision. She said, you just tell me. The decision was always in our hands and it was our project. You continue to state the traditional owners were consulted, and I have never heard you yet tell Council or myself what days you consulted with traditional owners and that they were part of that specific Lloyd Street Bridge design. Councillors, I urge you tonight to reconsider the facts, the costs, the decisions made for this revocation motion.
Thank you. Any other speakers, councillors, for or against the revocation motion? I'm going to enter the debate. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I'll hand over, and as I'll be the last speaker before Councillor Johnson replies. Get your stopwatch ready here. Thank you. Councillors, we've got a revocation motion, and I just want to address some of the issues, and I think some councillors want confusion. They're betting on it. Firstly, I'd say, please, don't believe everything you read in the paper or on someone's Facebook page, because quite often the information is incorrect. I'll deal with Councillor Richardson debate first. Yes, Councillor Richardson, the Minister was very frank and blunt at that meeting, but unfortunately you missed the first couple of minutes of it. And she clearly said she would take the project off the City of Swan's hand, but that was on the basis that we approved the concept design. Now, whether you were there at that stage or not, I don't know. I know you came later in the meeting, but you certainly weren't there all the time. As far as the reconciliation advisory groups go, they were tasked with developing and implementing a reconciliation action plan. That's all they were tasked with doing. They're not tasked with going out and engaging and consulting with Indigenous and traditional owners. That's beyond the scope of that advisory group. Main Roads were tasked with all consultation with the traditional owners. They were given, I believe, 7, perhaps 8 names confidentially by the SWALC, South West Aboriginal Land and Sea Council. I don't know who those traditional owners they consulted with, but you've been briefed by Main Roads, just as I was, how that went, and it's also been subject of reports by the various officers. I don't think you need to have the Jacobs report. The City of Swan has requested Main Roads, I think, at least 2 times in writing, maybe 3. That has not been forthcoming. I can't demand that we get a report from the State Government Department. We can request it, and we certainly have done that. But as I said last week, you only have to drive down Clayton Road or Military Road to know there's a huge traffic problem and it's only going to get worse. Councillor Catalano mentioned, well, she hasn't been told how much further a new design would cost. We've been briefed by Main Roads. All they could say would be tens of millions of dollars more. Last week I said, in talking to the Minister, it could be between $30 to $40 million more, and perhaps the journalist misheard what I said, and she wrote down 34. I definitely said between 30 to 40. Whether she misconstrued that because of my mask, maybe people were making noises in the... What's your point of order? Sorry.
I actually listened to the speech today, and it was 20 to 30 million, actually. That's what you said. You didn't say 30 to 40. You said 20 to 30 because I listened to it today.
Well, I was only trying to
just fact-checking on that one.
Thank you, Councillor Catalano. If I said 20 to 30, then that's fine by me. I was just trying to justify how the reporter said $34 million in her report if I never mentioned a figure above 34 or above 30. As I said, don't believe everything you read in the paper. Because in this same article it says the bridge would damage or destroy local heritage sites, including the rock shelter. The rock shelter is outside the footprint of the bridge design, and Councillor Predovnik's motion last week said it would be secured and protected. So please, there's another confusing subject brought up by supporters of this revocation motion. The Minister quite clearly said she'd hand the money to the City of Swan, whether it's $30 or $40 million.
1 minute, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. And we could build the bridge. Well, we can't do it. The Main Roads have told us in their briefing, in the officer's report, that it's going to cost tens of millions of dollars more, and we just can't put that onto our ratepayers. In regards to the trees, the report that Councillor McCulloch referred to last week, I read it in detail yesterday, said the trees are very degraded. So I agree with you, Councillor Catalano. They are ancient. They're perhaps in their last stages of their life. There were no cockatoo nesting sites found in the footprint, and there were no quendas. They were found 160 metres outside the footprint. So I think we have to stick with the facts. I cannot support this revocation motion because, as I said last week, and in summing up, there's two options. Endorse the concept design. Thank you. I'm just finishing off, as most other councillors do. Give it back to the state government. You write to the minister, and Councillor Knight, you said, well, this is our project, don't give it back to the state government. I don't know whether you've read Councillor Johnson's motion, but his point too is hand it back to the state government. So I can't support the revocation motion. Thank you. Councillor Johnson, your right of reply. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, as it says in here, and as Councillor Catalano pointed out, council confusion, and I think we've got even more confusion tonight. So the crux of this matter, councillors, is whether the $34 million, which is the state government funding, plus the Commonwealth government funding, is going to be taken off us if for some reason we change direction and decide to come up with a new concept design. That's not the case, and the Mayor has said twice in his debate, he's referred to an extra $10 to $20 million or $30 million. That's simply untrue. It's not the fact. It's very clear what Ms Safiotti said, and it's very clear what Ken White has said. We're not going to lose the money. We have the opportunity to come up with a different concept design if that's what we choose after the deferment. Councillors, it says confusion, and people watching this will be wondering why so few councillors have spoken out against the revocation motion. So, councillors, tonight, if you're in the position of a councillor who's going to vote against my revocation motion without speaking, people are going to say, well, given the fact there's so much clearly incorrect information in the last meeting, it's documented, why didn't councillors speak up? And as Councillor Knight said, you're all intelligent people. Now, councillors, this is a council, not a board of directors. But if it was a board of directors taking an extraordinarily important decision, the most important decision in 30 years, every director would be expected to speak and explain their point of view and ask questions. And I'm not seeing that here tonight. So when I see a heading that says council confusion, what's going to be the heading? What are we going to see in the newspapers tomorrow? Councillors, there was a fundamental error of understanding at the last meeting.
You have 1 minute left, thank you.
Councillors thought that we were going to lose the whole funding if we voted for either of the two motions. And instead we voted for this motion, where we take responsibility for design.
Resume your seat, thank you, Councillor Johnson. I'll stop the watch. What's your point of order, Councillor?
I certainly was not under the impression that we were going to lose all of the funding, whatever way the motion went, thank you. And I'm still not convinced with the commentary in the newspaper. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. If you can continue, Councillor Johnson, that may be your view. But
yes, I understand, Mr Mayor. Thank you for that. Any other councillors want to correct the record? Councillor Congleton has made it clear that he didn't misunderstand it. Here's one last chance. No. So, a number of councillors remain under a misapprehension during the earlier part of this meeting that we were going to lose $34 million. Councillors, we're not. It's perfectly feasible to explore the possibility of the option of a longer span bridge that will keep everybody happy. And this revocation motion, if it's successful, and we move on to the next motion, would enable us to defer and to look at other ways of moving forward, possibly including a concept forum, engagement with the traditional owners, and many other good things.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. That's your 3 minutes right of reply.
Mr Mayor, I'm going to keep it really quick. I can't vote for the budget reviews. I have concerns in my role as a councillor with the budget review process, and therefore the report that is before us and the recommendations on the screen, and as such I'll be voting against it.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The irony of the commentary by Councillor Bowman. The report was presented to the Audit Committee on the 15th of February, and this is referenced on pages 712 and 713 of the ACM agenda. So I'm a little bit bemused that you're against something that you approved before. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Knight. I'm now going to put to the vote those in favour of the staff recommendation. I have Councillor Jones, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Kiley, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Congdon, myself, Councillor Parry, Councillor Prodovnik, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Richardson and Councillor McCulloch, and I believe there's 2 against, being Councillor Bowman and Councillor Knight. The motion is carried. Thank you. I just have to find my run sheet again.
4.7, I think, Mr Mayor, is the next one.
That is 4.7.
Next item, Councillors, item 4.7.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, thanks for considering this motion. The officer's report is an excellent, comprehensive report that details the issues.
Yeah.
First part first, Councillor.
If you can move your motion, thank you, Councillor Knight.
Apologies.
Then I'll call for a second. That's understandable.
Oh, I can't find it. Okay, all right, I'll read it off. My motion is to approve the proposed patio addition to the rear of Lot 55, number 20 Rosebery Way, Bushmead, subject to the following conditions. The patio is to be made to be wholly of steel construction. All stormwater generated from the patio is to be contained wholly on site. And 3, no gutters, downpipes or fittings that could accumulate combustible materials to be fitted. And 2, to record the reason for changing officer recommendation is that a basic steel structure constructed of steel and appropriate fire-resistant materials situated on a paved area over a spa next to a pool poses a minimum potential fire risk to surrounding properties.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Howlett. Is there anyone against? Being no one, you're against, Councillor Bowman. You wish to debate it? No. Well, then I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? I can't see your hands, Councillor Parry or Prodovnik. You're voting against? You're voting for, Councillor Parry? Okay.
Against.
Yeah, that's fine. So everyone is voting for, with the exception of Councillor Bowman, Councillor Prodovnik, and was there one other? I declare the motion carried with only those 2 against. That takes us to the next item, councillors, which is item 4.8. It's on page 16 of the run sheet and 419 of the agenda, and Councillor Bowman.
Mr Mayor, approving the officer's recommendation with just one further condition, as on screen, and that is approval for the use of the warehouse as limited WA Nails and Beauty Supply Pty Ltd. Use of the warehouse by any other party will require further application for planning approval.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Congdon. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare it carried unanimously, which takes us to item 5.2. It's on page 563 of your agenda. It's the Allen Brook Leisure Centre. And Councillor Bowman. No, this is the order we agreed to earlier. 5.2, we need to make sure we got through certain items of business. Thank you, Councillor Bowman, when you're ready.
Mr Mayor, I'm moving that Council resolves, as per the officer's recommendation, with a couple of little slight changes, which is in red on 4 and 5, and that is reallocate 50,000 from account 200055-3091-66298 to undertake the review of the city's aquatic facilities strategy, and 5, consult with the community on the status of the Ellenbrook pool. Everything else is as per the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor McCulloch. Is there anyone against? You wish to debate it, Councillor Kiley?
Might as well hear the debate, yes.
Thank you. You can start your debate. Thanks, Councillor Bowman, and you have 5 minutes once you start speaking.
I'm going to go really quick, Mr Mayor. Can I first say to everyone that's listening, please, no one is suggesting the money allocated to the Ellenbrook pool from the state and federal government is going to be used for something else. This is simply not true, and I frown upon those who have decided to spread this totally false information. The state and federal money can only be used for the Ellenbrook pool. I can only speak for myself as one of the 15 councillors, but I am committed to ensuring the pool is built for Ellenbrook, and I am committed to making sure this happens as soon as possible. As councillors, we are aware of what's occurred to get to this position, and that is we have tendered twice now, awarded tendered both times for them only to withdraw at the last moment due to significant cost increases. This has nothing to do, this is not due to anything the council has done. This is reality of the current construction market that we are in. What we haven't done well, though, in my opinion, is regularly update the community, undertake proper and effective consultation, and without this missing gaps in information left to those to guess or make up. This is why I've added the further recommendation to consult with the community. Mr Mayor, I've heard some negative comments that if the city had agreed to build the pool a lot earlier, that we would not be faced with this issue. This may in fact be correct, but the simple fact is we didn't, and much as I'd like to do, we can't go back in time. And such, as a community, we need to look forward and work together towards getting an Ellenbrook pool built as soon as we practically can. Councillors, staff have presented us with 4 options. Option 1, cancel the project, which is not an option, so let's get rid of that one forever. Option 2 is reapproach the market. Councillors, we have done this twice now. On both occasions, the costs were above budget. This is not the market doing major building infrastructure unless we want to be reckless with the ratepayers' money. Do we really expect a different outcome? So let's get rid of that option. So we have 2 options left. Option 3, which is to pause the project until the construction market has stabilised, and option 4, put the project on hold and review and update the aquatic facility strategy. Councillors, if you're of the view to simply pause the project until the construction market has stabilised, I ask that you support option 4. Why, hear yourself asking, councillors? Well, even if you're of the view that the location, the design is the best thing since sliced bread, I would ask, why wouldn't you commit $50,000 to update the aquatic strategy? And let's put that figure into perspective. It would represent 0.071% of the total cost to make sure it is the best outcome. Councillors, I'm one of the many people which appear with every summer past that are growing that is a view that the current design, the current size and the current location are not right. Yes, it may be hard to accept. We designed a facility that will not deliver the best outcome, and yes, I acknowledge we have spent significant funds in the design process. But what would be worse would be spend millions of dollars building a facilities that we knew was not the best outcome. Let's make sure we're not making this mistake, and let's make sure the design and location and the size are the best outcomes. Councillors, I am of the view, personally, that a staged construction is needed and that a 50-metre outdoor pool needs to be constructed at stage 1 for Ellenbrook and the surrounding areas. We must take into consideration the future growth of Ellenbrook to the north, and we must plan for a district centre, not a local centre. Councillors can go into more details what my views are. I'll show you pictures and further elaborate on some of the great examples that already exist, such as the northern 50-metre outdoor solar heated pool that also has a 25-metre 4-lane solar heated leisure pool, 4 slides, splash pads and children's playgrounds, change rooms that are far better than any current aquatic facilities that I've ever seen, grandstand and viewing area, multi-purpose room and shaded areas and barbecues that cost $13 million only 2 years ago. This is why we should take the opportunity to make sure what we have previously designed and proposed is the best for our community and our residents that we represent. Councillors, I acknowledge that I'm no design expert and these are my opinions only, but Councillors, the aquatic facilities strategy that was undertaken by Warren Green Consulting in 2015 is one of the best strategies that I've read as a councillor. Councillors, I know some of you, including myself, went on council in
You have 1 minute left, thank you.
2015, but you should ask for a copy and have a read. I did, as I wanted to be fully informed, but also see how and why we came to the current location and size. On reading the strategy now 3 times, I don't have the answers, and I'm left with the question still of why. And this is because of what I read in the strategy. Councillors, it's a 72-page strategy, but I want to quote just a few quick things. As the projected population growth is planned over an extended period of time, any development must be future-proofed for stage expansion. As a result, site size may be a critical factor. The Yellowbrook site is quite restrained, meaning that car parking may potentially need to be built under the proposed site. The road provides hard edges. Roads in the area are not necessarily designed for such large amounts of traffic, particularly at times when school finishes, swimming pool classes and sporting clubs commence activities at 3:15 to 4:30 time slot. Car parking was a key limitation, especially when a large number of people visiting the broader EDOS site at the same time. Central to the future provisions, enhanced capacity and location of aquatic facilities cater for the projected population growth in the areas of Bullsbrook Place and Ellenbrook Place.
Have you got much left, Councillor Bowman?
One paragraph. The design option does not provide diversification of existing aquatic facilities. Councillors, let's make sure we've got it right. Let's not wait until next financial year to get this happening. Let's review the aquatic strategy now while we wait for the construction industry to calm down. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McCulloch is the seconder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, councillors. I urge you to support Councillor Bowman's motion. It is really important that we review thoroughly the city's aquatic facility strategy so that we can get that back with those considerations. The reallocation of the $50,000 to undertake that review is imperative so we can get that happening, and consultation with our community that is continuing and draws more of their thoughts and considerations will be beneficial as well. I'm not going to keep talking. Councillor Bowman has covered it fairly consistently, so I urge you to support that motion.
Thank you. Speaker against the motion. Councillor Kiley.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, if you wouldn't mind just opening to page 467 of the officer's report. It's got the recommendation there, 3 simple points. And strangely enough, they're somewhat exceptionally similar to Councillor Bowman's motion, with the exception of reallocating $50,000 from one account to another to undertake the city's aquatic facilities strategy, a review of that. But point 3 of the officer's recommendations got that in it anyway, so it's going to be done anyway. So the CEO's taking care of it. It's going to be done. We don't have to take funds away from the Midland Library and reallocate them elsewhere. The city's officer's recommendation has got that in there. The CEO will take care of that. There's no difference effectively with Councillor Bowman's motion and the officer's recommendation. Only that we're not dictating where the funds should come from, and we're not taking away from the Midland Library. So basically the officer's recommendation is to leave it up to the staff. They'll sort it out. So there's really no difference between Bowman's motion, Councillor Bowman's motion, and the officer's recommendation. Both will put the Ellenbrook Leisure Centre project on hold, as per point 1. Both will request the CEO approach the state and federal government bodies advising of the situation and to discuss grant funding implications. Both do that. And both will undertake a review of the city's aquatic facilities strategy and report back to council on the completion of this review. So both achieve the same thing. The only difference effectively is in red in Councillor Bowman's motion to reallocate money from one section of the budget to elsewhere, which I don't think is needed because obviously the officers think that they can do it without having to reallocate money away from Midland Library. Point 5. Consult with the community on the status of the Ellenbrook pool. Well, it's a bit late to be consulting with them on the status when we're putting it on hold. Point 1 was to put it on hold, whether that be the officer's recommendation or the Ellenbrook or the Councillor Bowman's motion. So consulting with the community on the status, well, there's no consultation to be had other than telling them that it's been put on hold. We can notify them that it's been put on hold. Consulting with them we might consult on a range of other issues as to what Councillor Bowman elaborated on in terms of the design options, the location issues, the location options, the car parking requirements and arrangement, the need for barbecues, multi-purpose rooms, and a whole range of other things he listed. But we're not talking about that in this instance. We're just talking about what we do in the short term. We put the leisure centre project on hold, and we undertake a review of the aquatic facilities strategy. So simply the basic difference is we're not dictating to staff where the money comes from, and we're not allocating money or spending ratepayers' money unnecessarily on this particular project. It may mean that it may only require staff time of $5,000 and allocation of $5,000, $10,000, but allocating $50,000 is unnecessarily allocating money to a project that might not cost that much. So please, I foreshadow the officers, supporting the officers' moving the officers' recommendation, and to achieve simply the same thing, but in a much more efficient means. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion. An amendment. What's your amendment? Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. On point 5, I'd like to see the words consult with removed and the word inform put in place.
Is that acceptable to the mover and the seconder? You can move an amendment, I believe, Councillor Bowman.
Mr Mayor, point of order under our standing orders. If debate has actually happened, you cannot go back to the mover and the seconder to ask to amend their original motion.
I'm just getting that checked out by the governance officer, but we do it every meeting. We've done it in this meeting, I believe. I'm just waiting to get some guidance from the governance officer. Thank you, Ms Albrecht.
Through you, Mr Mayor. So it is allowable for the mover and seconder to accept the... Sorry. Because some debate has already occurred, you need to ask all councillors whether or not they agree with the amendment. If anyone doesn't agree with the amendment, then it needs to be debated.
Thank you. So first of all, I'm asking the mover and the seconder. That's not acceptable to yourselves. Then I'll, if you get a seconder, Councillor Congdon, I'll put it to the vote. So if you just want to read out from the screen your amendment.
Well, 5 would be with the removal of consult with and insert inform the committee on the status of the Ellenbrook Pool.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Howlett. Is there anyone against? Do you wish to debate it? No one wishes to debate it, or we want to put it straight to the vote? Okay, and we'll debate it. Councillor Congdon, just hold on for a minute. Can we break for our 10-minute adjournment? We'll deal with this item first. I'll deal with this item. Okay. We'll deal with this item, and then we're going to have a short adjournment after this item's been concluded, councillors. Councillor Congdon, you've got 5 minutes to debate your amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm quite happy with everything else in this particular, but the words consult with the community on the status of the Ellenbrook Pool, well, the status on the Ellenbrook Pool is already part of the motion. So I don't see how we can go about and consult with what we've suggested in the motion we should carry. But we certainly need to inform our community on the decision of council, which is formed in this motion.
Thank you. And as the seconder, Councillor Howlett.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just having a quick Google search of the words. Consult means to seek information or advice, and as Councillor Congerson said, we are not seeking information or advice, we are just informing. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker against the amendment. Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I appreciate the amendment, but we have already informed the community via a press release post a place meeting, so I can't accept that amendment.
Thank you. Any other speakers for or against the amendment? Councillor Budovnik or Parry, I can't see you both. Either for or against the amendment. Do you wish to enter the debate? Councillor Bowman, you're speaking against.
Mr Mayor, just to add, look, we're playing with words, I think. Now, The reason why I'm against it, inform to me is one-way communication, consult is two-way, and that's why I would like to see the word consult still in there, to have that two-way communication because of all the phone calls and emails that I've been taking the last few days and all the mistruths that are out there at the moment.
Thank you. Councillor Kiley, which way are you speaking?
I'll just ask a question, if I could, through you, Mayor. I want to know whether the word consult would imply that there are costs associated through the city, or maybe the CEO can answer it, in terms of do we have to go out? Would the city be obliged, if that was moved with that word consult in there, would we be obliged to go out and consult and spend ratepayers' money to do that?
Mr CEO.
Mr Mayor, the answer to that would be yes. Consult would mean that we would go out and we would form some type of formal consultation process with members of the community around that, and that would incur some costs, whether it be direct financial costs or staff time. There would be some costs involved in that.
I'll ask again, are any other speakers for or against the amendment? Being no other speakers, Councillor Congdon, you write a reply, please. Thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate the commentary back. But whether this has been discussed at a place meeting or otherwise, or a press release, it didn't have and couldn't have had the content in this motion, because this motion is being decided by Council tonight. Not something that happened 2 or 3 weeks ago. We're well aware of what happened in the press. So I'm just a little bit worried that we're going to say consult, and then we're expected then to go out and consult, because as we know, under item 3, request the CEO to review the city's aquatic facility strategy and report back to Council, ultimately will have a part in it which says consult with the community. So is it the intention we consult twice, or we're going to consult once under item 3? But we need to inform the community, whichever way we do, Mr Mayor, whether it's social media or otherwise, of tonight's decision.
Thank you. We're now voting on the amendment, councillors, to remove the word consult and insert the word inform. Those in favour? Of Councillor Jones, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Kiley, Councillor Congdon, myself, Councillor Knight, Councillor Zanino, Councillor McCulloch, Councillor Parry. That makes 9, 4, and the rest were against. The amendment is passed and now becomes part of the substantive motion. If that can be shown on the whiteboard.
We just had 10 in the count. Could we just quickly just go through it again?
Okay, those in favour, again, please. I've got Councillor McCulloch, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Knight, myself, Councillor Congdon. Is your hand up or down? Oh, yes. Councillor Catalano, Councillor Kiley, Councillor Howlett and Councillor Jones and Councillor Parry. That's now 10.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you. So, as I said, the amendment is carried. It now forms part of the substantive motion. Any other speakers on the substantive motion, please, councillors?
Question.
Question, Councillor Johnson.
May I ask, Mr Mayor, through you to the CEO, what would be the effect on the Midland Library of removing $50,000 from its budget?
Mr CEO.
Through you, Mr Mayor, we were just trying to seek clarification in relation to that during the debate, so I might have to defer to either Ms Lay or Mr Coaten in relation to what that budget amount is actually for.
Through you, Mr Mayor, that was for the repairs to the roof for the Midland Library, but we've been unsuccessful in getting contractors to do that, so the money is being on next year's budget to do that work.
Thank you.
So I need further clarification. Does that mean there's $50,000 left in this year's budget and we're going to instead fix the roof next year?
My understanding, Mr Mayor, is that the roof works will be conducted next year, so the $50,000 is a saving for this year to be reallocated to undertake this works, and you will need to then put the money in next year's budget to then do the works on the Midland Library. Carry forward. Yeah. We'll carry forward and then allocate another $50,000 if that $50,000 is used for this.
So that raises another question. This is the first time we've heard about this delay to the repair to the Midland Library roof.
It's in the agenda.
Oh, thank you. I didn't know that.
Councillors, are there any other speakers for or against the motion as it now stands with the word inform? Councillor Henderson, which way are you speaking, for or against? Thank you.
I'm speaking for the motion
Thank
as
you.
it stands. Thank you, Mayor. A couple of things I need to address in regard to this project. Certainly, it is something that the northeast sector of our city wants, needs, and desperately has been asking for. We get very hot summers, as you know, and they want to see this thing come together. So it's time that we went out there, given that we've been unable to successfully fund the project through the amounts that we've had available to us against new pricing coming to us. So the market's way too hot. We've got to go out there and have a look at this and pull it back together. The other thing I do want to touch on is that I think it gives us an opportunity to consider staging the project as part of the review, and considering the amount of discussion that happened about a 25-metre pool. I'm with Councillor Bowman on the 50-metre pool being given another close look at. The other thing I wanted to touch on...
Point of order, Mayor, sorry.
What's your point of order, Councillor Johnson? If you can resume your seat. Thank you, Councillor. Sorry, Kylie. Thank you, Councillor.
Respectfully, Councillor Henderson is not speaking to the motion. We're not talking about a 50-metre pool or a 25. We're just looking at notifying the community we're going to put this on hold. I just think he's way off the mark.
Thank you. I rule your point of order out of order. Councillor Bowman in his debate said, let's go back and revisit it all. He mentioned a 50-metre pool might be more appropriate. He referred to the one in Northern. So please continue, Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, and thank you for the interruption. I was on a bit of a run there. Let me just get back to it, though. I do want to have a bit of a say about the state funding or the lack of it, because this should be part of the review process and part of the lobbying to try and get some funding. So far, of the 7 million that was put up by the state, 5 million of it came from the Australian government, Department of Health, and only 2 million from sport and cultural industries. So I think the state needs to be given a good hard discussion as part of this review, and what are they doing to support the local community? Well, frankly, I don't think they've done much at all so far. I think those are the points I wanted to make, Mr Mayor, and Councillor, where is he?
Parry.
Parry, yes, did say that he wanted to speak.
Thank you. Councillor Kylie, you have a question?
I'm interested, Mayor, to know through you how the CEO was going to fund the city's aquatic facilities strategy revision if there's no allocation in the recommendation of funding.
Through you, Mr Mayor, if I could draw Council's attention to page 466. A review of the aquatic facilities strategy is expected to cost approximately $50,000. This work can be programmed for and added to the draft budget for the 2022-23 financial year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Parry, you wish to enter the debate?
Yes, I do, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. When you start talking, you'll have 5 minutes if you need it.
Thank you very much. First things first, I completely agree that Ellen certainly needs pull. There's no doubt about that. I also agree with Councillor Henderson's point of view in regards to the state funding as well. If you look at the City of Perth aquatic centre that's going to be built at the WACA, the City of Perth is only going to pay $25 million in regards to the whole process, not just while we have to pay $25 million plus operating costs for the next 40, 50 years as well. I think that's quite unfair, and that needs to be considered as part of the aquatic facility strategy as well. The second part is I'm vehemently for a complete review of the aquatic facility strategy, in particular in relation to the closure of the Balladura Aquatic Centre, which was raised in the 2015 aquatic facility strategy. This cannot happen. It's as simple as that. And also the fact that we are still waiting on advice from the state government in regards to the Whiteman Open Regional Space Aquatic Centre as well, in which we do not know where it's going to be located. We don't know what the process is. We don't know anything else, and we require state government to provide further information in regards to this facility as well. So I think this is a perfect time. What's going on in regards to the white and open space quota?
You're dropping in and out, Councillor Parry. Sorry, Councillor Parry, you've dropped out on your volume. Thank you, Councillor Parry. The last minute and a half of your debate we could not hear, but we'll continue on. Any other speakers for or against the motion? Thank you, councillors.
Question, Mr Mayor.
Question, Councillor Johnson.
So just looking at the budget adjustments, which are on page 673 and 674, there are 4 separate items transferring budget from Midland Library. And the first one I see is transfer budget from Midland Library to Mornington Park to carry out urgent safety concerns. I'm assuming it's not that one. So which of these 4 items were we transferring what looks like about $700,000 away from the Midland Library? Which item is it that we are taking the $50,000 from?
Mr Coaten, if you can assist, please. Thank you.
It's from the Midland Library roof project. So, and that's not included in the budget adjustments that are in this agenda. That would be, and that's the purpose, as I understand it, why this motion needs an absolute majority, because the intention of Councillor Bowman's motion is that this, if it becomes a resolution, would actually be the budget adjustment.
So I just got a further question, and surely, as we're not building the Ellenbrook Leisure Centre, surely there's money in that budget we could use for this. Wouldn't it make sense to spend money from the Ellenbrook Leisure Centre budget on the Ellenbrook Leisure Centre review, or it's an aquatic review? That would make sense to me.
Did you hear the question, Mr CEO?
No, I didn't, Mr Mayor.
Perhaps if you could repeat it. Thank you, Councillor Johnson.
Yeah. Would it be reasonable to take money from the Ellenbrook Leisure Centre fund to spend on an aquatic review that is primarily about the Ellenbrook Leisure Centre?
Through you, Mr Mayor.
Texted Jeremy, Amanda and Jim.
Who's that? Ah.
Is there problem?
Our internet connection just dropped out, so we lost all of the people connected to the meeting, but they will just rejoin, so hopefully.
Thank you. Did you hear the question, Mr CEO?
I did, Mr Mayor. My understanding would be is that the money allocated for the Ellenbrook Leisure Centre would be for the design and works associated with the actual purpose of building the leisure centre. This strategy piece is a more broader piece of work that wouldn't necessarily fit the purpose then for that.
Said, sorry, we got cut.
So that would be the reason, Councillor.
Must be at 8 o'clock time. Time to...
As soon as we finish this item, thank you, Councillor Parry, we're having a break.
I've got a further question. So how is that answer different to the money that we're transferring from the Midland Library? Surely that was also for construction of the Midland Library roof repair.
Thank you, Mr Coaten.
I don't have the answer to hand. It would depend on if it was municipal funds that were in the Ellenbrook Leisure Centre for this year, or if it was the state and federal government grant funds. But if it was municipal funds, then presumably it would be at council's discretion.
So you know that they can hear us, we just can't hear them.
So it's quite challenging maintaining a line of questioning when we're getting these technical challenges. So it would seem more reasonable then to reallocate $50,000 from municipal funds that were allocated for the Ellenbrook Leisure Centre.
Thank you. I'll ask if there's any more councillors wishing to enter the debate.
Yeah, can I get an answer to my question first before we go on?
I think the CEO was just distracted for a moment. If you could ask a question, it's either yourself, Mr CEO, or Mr Coaten. Yeah, I'm asking to ask it again, so either Mr Coaten can respond or the CEO can respond. Thank you.
Want me to ask again? Okay. So
Thank you.
The question is, if there is $50,000 available in municipal funds that were allocated to the Ellenbrook Leisure Centre, and if the Ellenbrook Leisure Centre is not going ahead, can we spend that $50,000 on the city aquatic facilities strategy?
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes, if there's municipal funds available, then you could allocate the $50,000 from there.
In that case, amendment.
Just one other question, though.
I'll deal with Councillor Catalano's question first. Thank you, Councillor Catalano.
Why can't we carry forward the money set aside for Midland Library into next year? Why are we spending that on all these various bits and pieces? Why can't we just carry forward? We know the work's got to be done. We just carry forward that money to next year, and then all these other things that have got to be funded out of the other municipal kind of funding bucket that's allocated either for those projects or for whatever.
Mr CEO or Mr Coates?
That's the question.
Mr Coates, do you have a response to the reallocations?
Well, the reallocations, they come to council for a decision, and council has made a decision on those ones. The funds are used to cover shortfalls in the current financial year, but they all budget adjustments come to council for a decision, and that's what's occurred on this occasion.
Sorry, my question wasn't answered, because my question was why couldn't it, so we do it in the past tense then, why couldn't the money have been, and this 50,000, we can talk about that in the present tense, why can't it be carried forward next year for the work to Midland Library that obviously has to be done?
Mr Coates?
It could be.
Yeah. You indicated you had an amendment, Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, Mr Mayor. Yeah, my amendment is to change item 4 to reallocate $50,000 from municipal funds allocated to the Ellenbrook Leisure Centre to undertake the review of the city's aquatic facilities strategy.
And that was the second, Councillor Kiley. Have you identified, I'll just seek your guidance, Mr CEO, is there $50,000 in that fund to be reallocated for the funding?
There must be, it was going to cost millions.
I'm not aware of Mr Coates seems
to... I've just texted Mrs Lay and she's checking at the moment.
And I've done the same, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Just we have to identify exactly where the $50,000 was coming from.
Mr Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Kim, I can.
Through you, Mr Mayor, in the annual budget there was an amount of 780,000 municipal funding allocated to the leisure centre, but to confirm that the municipal funding is still available, we would need to check the actual project ledger in more detail, and we don't have that information to hand.
Thank you.
In which case, can I get some advice, Mr Mayor, on how to reform my amendment? Reallocate from municipal funds allocated to the Ellenbrook Leisure Centre if there is funding available. How about that? Item 4, reallocate from municipal funds allocated to the Ellenbrook Leisure Centre if funds remain in that account.
Mr CEO.
Through you, Mr Mayor, maybe Councillor Johnson would like to just ensure that the reallocation of funds comes from the municipal account out of the leisure services portfolio, as the review would be in relation to a review of the aquatic strategy, so therefore it would be across the whole area.
Okay, so then we could be confident of finding $50,000.
And then out of the whole division, there would be some municipal funds that we could identify then that would serve that purpose.
Right.
Makes more sense to me.
I'll just wait for it to go up on the board. I had a seconder in Councillor Kiley. I'm happy with that, Mayor. Thank you. Councillor Bowman as the mover of the motion to accept that amendment. You don't. We wish to debate it. You don't. Well, then does anyone wish to debate the amendment, or I'll put it? Well, you can vote against it. Do you wish to debate it? Briefly. Okay. There's people against the amendment. Councillor Johnson, do you wish to open the debate or not?
I'm happy to talk to you very briefly.
Thank you.
Look, councillors, it did come as a great surprise to see that we're taking $50,000 from the Midland Library to undertake the review of the aquatic facility centre. It seems a bit unreasonable to be, particularly when I see some of the reasons for transferring the money in the budget adjustments is basically to carry out urgent safety concerns elsewhere. I think the staff have already identified how they wish to use the money from the Midland Library, and they've explained what it's going to be used for, so I don't think we should be changing that. The CEO has just advised that the money could be made available from the leisure portfolio, and councillors, speaking as a project manager, if you've got a project that's come to a sudden end, you can be pretty confident that there's going to be money left over in the budget. Now, of course, I think the distinction we're drawing here is that money that's still in the budget that has not been spent because the project is on hold. Is that municipal funding, or is that grant funding we've been given by the state? We don't know, but I'm guessing there must be some municipal funding in there as well. And I guess another question that arises is, even if it was state grant funding, could we use it to review the city's aquatic facility strategy? I guess I'm thinking on my feet, and the answer to that is probably no. But it seems reasonable to take the money for an aquatic facilities strategy review from the leisure services portfolio and not from the Midland Library, which needs its roof repaired. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Kiley is the seconder.
It makes sense, councillors, to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Speakers against the amendment. Councillor Henderson.
Okay, briefly, councillors, what we're doing here is we're taking $50,000 off something else. Currently, the Midland Library is operating on the corner of the Avenue and Sayre, I think it is, quite nicely. Clearly, we're not going to get to spend the $50,000 this year. During our budget process, we can allocate $50,000 next year to the library process and get on with the works when we're going to get the opportunity to spend the money. So what's been proposed by Councillor Bowman, in my view, is perfectly rational. We do this all the time with our funding throughout the year, rather than muck around with taking 50-odd thousand or whatever off other projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion or the amendment. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Bowman, please.
Mr Mayor, I thought this was a fairly easy thing. We've had 2 weeks' notice of this, so I'm surprised that it's being raised now. I'm not taking money off the Midland Library. I'm not making the library disappear. We've already done that in the budget adjustments. It was there. When I asked staff, where can we take $50,000 from? I wanted to identify an account. You know why? Because good governance is, if you put a cost that's unbudgeted, you should say where it's coming from. The response was, we'll be able to find it in the budget. I've done my homework. I know that the library's not going ahead this financial year. It will happen next financial year. And all it is instead of allocating $50,000 next financial year to the aquatic strategy, we're doing it this year. We're taking it from one. We'll give it back next year. It's that simple, councillors.
Thank you. Any other speakers for or against the amendment? Then you'll write a reply. Thanks, Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm going to have to sit down because I'm going to have to read this. Look, it's not that simple. Are we transferring the budget from the Mornington Park, where we need to carry out urgent safety repairs, or are we taking the money from the Ellenbrook District Open Space Pavilion North for scoping and design upgrade, or are we taking it from building community facilities to address additional funds required to complete the trial of the Arena Clean product, or are we taking it from the Midland Road Bridge to address additional funds? Oh, it'd be interesting to know what that one is, which Midland Road Bridge. So, councillors, it's not coming from the Midland Library because we've already readjusted. It's coming from one of those 4 things I've just read out. And there's no explanation as to whether any of those 4 things could sustain a $50,000 budget reduction. So I think the best thing to do here is to take it from the appropriate budget. We've heard from the CEO that the appropriate budget is available, so that's what we should do. In my view, it's just simple common sense. So please vote for my amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm now going to put the amendment. Those in favour of Councillor Johnson, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Kiley, Councillor Catalano and Councillor Knight, which is 5. The amendment is lost.
I vote for that one as well, please.
Okay, and Councillor Budovnik, that's 6. The motion is lost as it required an absolute majority. Megan, do you note that Councillor Congdon had left the chamber during that vote? Thank you. So we're now back to the motion as it stood before that amendment, councillors, and I'll ask, are there any other speakers for or against the substantive motion as it stands? Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, I'm against it, Mr Mayor. I think mostly for the reasons I've already explained. It is reasonable, in my view, to undertake a review of a strategy, and who knows, that might produce options, different ideas, and that's a good thing. And I think we need to be doing more of that. But we're taking the money from the wrong location, and we don't know what the impact would be. So, councillors, just to be clear, I'm clear that it's not coming from the Midland Library budget. It's coming from either the Mornington Park urgent repairs, or it's coming from the Ellenbrook District open space, or it's coming from the building community facilities, or it's coming from the Midland Road Bridge, whichever bridge that is. We'll have to ask about that later. So it's the wrong thing to do because it's not explainable. So that's why I'm voting against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers for or against the substantive motion as it stands, councillors? Being no other speakers, your right to reply. Thank you, Councillor Bowman. You have 3 minutes if you need it.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I thought this one was going to be a fairly simple one, but I was wrong. Councillor Kiley said it's not much difference. Well, there's a big difference there, Councillor Kiley. The staff report, if it's been read, indicated that $50,000 was going to come out of next year's budget, so therefore the strategy review could not happen to next financial year. What I'm saying now is reallocate the money now, and we can actually go out and try and get a consultant now. Let's not wait more time. Let's try and shorten this up. There's another 4 months, and I'll tell you what, the people of Ellenbrook will be grateful for that. Again, councillors, it's not new information. It's been in your agendas. I'm not taking the money from the library because I don't want the library roof to happen. The report in the council agenda says that that's not happening. Again, look, let's consult, inform the community. There's lots of mistruths out there. Even our local federal member in a communication stating a few mistruths. Let's get the right information out to all people, because people think that the money's been taken and it's going to be spent on the Midland pool. They think we've taken the money to actually go spend it on something else. It's not right. Councillors, this is what we need to do. I think we're all agreeing that we should be building a pool out in Ellenbrook. And again, councillors, it's good governance when you actually allocate the cost centre, and that's what I've done. And it's been there for 2 weeks, so no one's questioned it before then.
Thank you. I'm now putting the vote on the motion as it stands. Those in favour of Councillor Jones, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Kiley, Councillor Congdon, myself, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Richardson, Councillor McCulloch, Councillor Podovnik and Councillor Parry. I believe that was 12. Those against, please, if you could raise your hands. Sorry, against. Councillor Johnson, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Knight. The motion is carried 12-3. We're now going to break for 10 minutes and come back at 8:45. Thank you, councillors. Enjoy your short break. I wish we were coming back at 9:45, but... Thank you, councillors. We're reconvening where we left off. The next item is item 2.1, Policy Review Procurement, and Councillor Bowman.
I was just waiting for it to come on the screen because it's probably easier to see than me to read. But basically, it's approving the policy with a few changes to the procurement thresholds. And basically, where it was 5, it's now 10. Where it was 5 to 50, it's now 10 to 100. Where it was 50 to 250, it was 100 to 250. And then there's, in the processes, there's attain at least 2 written quotes and 1 local supplier must be sought. and in the 100 to 250 obtain at least 3 written quotes, at least 1 local supplier must be sought.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Henderson, is there anyone against? There is. You wish to debate it?
Yes.
Thank you. You have 5 minutes to start your debate. Thank you, Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, Section 2.7 of the Local Government Act quite clearly states what the role of the council is, and that is to govern the local affairs, be responsible for the performance of local government functions, to oversee the allocation of local government finances and resources, and determine the local government policies. Councillors, it's clear to me that a policy on procurement covers each of these 4 roles that I've just read out, and as such, I consider an item where councillors reviewing procurement policy is extremely important. Councillors, the item we have before us is the result of an audit finding by the OAG, whereby it was raised there was a lack of process with regards to the contract variations and extensions. From my experience, Council, I've seen a number of issues that have arisen in a number of local governments that have had no process or accountability with contract variations and extensions, with a number of these leading to extremely poor financial practices, and I would go as far as saying misuse of council funds. It should be noted, I am not suggesting in any way this has occurred at the City of Swan, but I raise this matter to merely make everyone aware of how important to have such a process. Councillors, I've reviewed the suggested change to the policy. I'm confident the proposed changes adequately cover what is required for contract extensions and variations. We as a city do have a need to react in a more timely manner to issues such as these, which I note from the Office report was identified over 2 years ago. Councillors, we've been asked to review the policy. We should also make sure that we're satisfied that the policy adequately captures all other matters, as a council policy is us, the council, providing a specific direction that the staff must undertake. It is important to note that no staff member, not even the CEO, can go against an adopted council policy. Councillors, a council policy is basically us putting in place the process or the rules that staff must follow on certain issue. This policy being the process rules that staff must follow with regards to procurements. Councillors would like to draw your attention to section 8.2 of the policy on page 88, that being the procurement thresholds. And again, thank staff for removing the previously drafted process, which was referring to PRO-GO-001, 006 and 002. In the report that was included in the February meeting. What were these processes? Well, councillors, we would never have seen this as the administrative processes. A management practice, and as such, any policy that has reference to administrative processes or a management practice needs to be carefully considered, as the administration process or the management practice can change at any time, and council will not be aware of it. Council does not have a role to play in administration issues. Councillors, I would like to draw your attention to the current policy we have before us and the applicable processes. Councillors, the current policy states that for purchases of $50,000 up to $250,000, staff are to seek a sufficient number of requests for quotation, minimum of 3, and obtain a minimum of 1 quote. The requirements for purchasing being $5,000 to $50,000 needs to seek a minimum of 2. What does this all mean? Well, according to the Collins Dictionary, it means to try and find, to search for, look for. There, for example, for a purchase of $180,000, staff are required to try and find, to search for or look for 3 quotes, but only required to obtain 1. Do you think this is sufficient enough? My answer is no, and it's no because how do I know that the City of Swan is getting value for money, and how do I know we are being accountable with ratepayers' funds? I'm aware that staff will advise that having to obtain 2 or 3 quotes, depending on the value, may slow things down. They don't always receive 3 quotes, and given the building climate that we are currently in, this will not be as simple as I've made it out to be. But please remember that this policy is for all purchases, and I ask, are you willing to sacrifice good governance, accountability and best use of ratepayers' funds over staff having to change the process to ensure more quotes are received, as I know I am not. Councillors, my amendments to having to obtain 2 or 3 quotes provides me with the confidence that I need to have in undertaking my legislative roles as a councillor. And councillor, just finally, my other change that I'm requesting is that local businesses are always approached and given an opportunity to quote. We should be ensuring that our local businesses are given every opportunity, and by including this in the policy, staff will be required to undertake this on every occasion. This proposed change does not provide any favouritism for local businesses over others, does not provide for any price preference model, as this is not allowed by those local governments located within the metro area. It simply is saying, let's make sure we all consider the local businesses and let them have a chance to quote.
Thank you. Councillor Henderson is the seconder.
Thank you, Mayor. As always, Councillor Bowman has gone into the detail very well, and thank you for that. I think you also have to consider that in today's environment, $10,000 doesn't go very far. And we're seeing a more heavier or bigger tenders. The fact of the matter is that we do have to move along with the times, but I do like to see accountability, and I think that's been enunciated already. To me, we have to be more accountable to our ratepayers. They certainly expect it of us, and the fact that staff have got to go out and get those is something that's important to ratepayers, because they've said to me that they're not happy with the process. They want to see a little bit more accountability. So I support this motion. I think it's a step forward in our procurement. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker against the motion. Councillor Congdon first.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I can't support this, and I'll start off by saying if this loses, I'll be foreshadowing the officer's recommendation. If you have a look at what is promoted here by Councillor Bowman, is to obtain at least 2 written quotations, and one of those must be from a local supplier. What you did...
Order, Mr Mayor.
What's your point of order, please?
I'm not saying one must be. I'm saying it's only purely to seek.
Well, seek, sought.
Well, it says must be sought. At least one local supplier quote must be sought. So I'll rule your point of order out. Thank you. Continue, Councillor Congdon.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We, like Councillor Henderson said, are in very difficult times. Stock is very hard to find. Contractors are very hard to find. Manufacturing is extremely difficult, and distribution even harder. So if we have to go down this road of obtaining at least 2 written quotations on the 5 now to 10 to 100,000, and then make sure that we get a local quote must be sought, I contend it would be very difficult. And then it gets a little worse when you move up the chain by saying at least 3 written quotations, at least 1 local supplier quote must be sought. This policy is reviewable each year, and I think it would be fair to council and the staff who are obtaining quotes to be given the licence to continue as the proposal in the officer's recommendation, but in the review of 2023 maybe we won't be so COVID struck and goods and services might be a little bit freer, and we'll be able to get on to at least get those written quotations as suggested by Councillor Bowman. But in this particular stage of our COVID era, I think it's going to be very difficult for the staff to obtain what is written in this proposal.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion.
A question, Mr Mayor.
Question, Councillor Johnson.
The question really relates to the fact that we've got this is quite a technical change here, and in my view we need to have advice from the CEO as to whether this is actually practical. Could we get such advice?
Through you, Mr CEO, or to Mr Albrecht?
Well, Mr Mayor, I don't wish to enter the debate in relation to it, but in relation in the current market environment, trying to seek 2 written quotes in that category could prove to be problematic in the current environment, notwithstanding that in 12 months' time as the market softens a little bit more and there's more contractors out there, but we have noticed a reluctance of contractors to actually quote on jobs at the moment. So it could prove to be problematic.
Thank you.
Thank you. Speakers for the motion. Any other speakers for or against the motion? Councillor Kiley.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, you'll be next, Councillor Parry, but Councillor Kiley first.
Apologies, Councillor Parry, if you can hear me. Councillors, I encourage you not to vote for these changes. As Councillor Congdon pointed out, getting suppliers is quite difficult at this moment. And this would require us to get at least 2 written quotations. Now, in most cases where there's a specialty service or function involved, you're not going to get 2 quotations. You may get one. We might have one person ready in a technical area. Maybe it's a radio communications or something like that, or CCTV installation. Maybe there might be one that's put in a quotation. It might be quite reasonable, but staff will not be able to proceed with employing that or taking on that contract or giving out that contract because they haven't got two, because this requirement obtain at least 2 written quotations. So here we will have many instances where you're going to have someone ready to go, someone's quite capable, someone's probably really good in their field, an organisation, street sweeping or something. You get one quote for the whole work, but staff will be hamstrung because they need 2 quotations and can't proceed otherwise. So this simply just doesn't work. We've already heard tonight that Midland Library ceiling is not going to be repaired because we can't get one tenderer, not even one. So this will definitely hamstrung staff, and it will put to a disadvantage tenderers in the community or in metropolitan Perth who come forward and put their hand up and say, I can do it within the budget you've got. But we won't be able to employ them. We won't be able to give out that contract because here, in this instance, we've got to get 2 written quotations. In this instance, we've got to get at least 3 written quotations. In this instance, we might get 2 people who are prepared to do the work, but we haven't got the 3, so therefore we can't proceed. This hamstrings the staff and limits getting all this work done. So in many instances, especially in specialty areas, you're only going to get one if you're lucky. So please do not support this. It is completely unworkable. I appreciate what Councillor Bowman is trying to achieve here, but on another level, he talks about at least one local supplier quote must be sought where a local supplier is available. Are we suggesting that staff give favourable treatment to one, or go out, phone them up and say, hey, you need to put in, want you to put in a quote? I've already gone down this path a few years back with when the former CEO was here. It was advised that you can't do that. You can't give preferential treatment in a tender process to one person because they're local. You either put the tender out and you apply the same rules for everybody. Phoning someone up and saying, hey mate, we want you to put a quote in, I don't know whether it's anti-competitive but it certainly doesn't meet the information I got back a few years ago was it doesn't meet the tender, the process. It doesn't fit the bill. It shows preference to somebody else in a whole process. The fact that staff ring up and have a conversation with a supplier, whereas other suppliers actually have to read it from a tendering website or respond to an advertisement. So you can't actually do that. I don't think it's legal that we go ahead and do that. And again, so that's another issue that I don't think has been considered here. So please don't change the rules at the moment. All for the changes in the terms of the price, the category, the price brackets, but don't force staff to go and get 2 or 3 quotations because in most cases we're just not going to get them. So the former wording was much better. Seek a sufficient number of written quotations and obtain a minimum of 1. So that works. That's been working. Don't change it, particularly in this current economic environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kiley. Speaker for the motion. Councillor Parry, you wish to enter the debate?
Yes, I do, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. When you're ready, I'll stop watch when you start speaking. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I think the thought by Councillor is considerate, but it's not practical. It's as simple as that. The major issue you have in this current market as someone that does do a significant amount of procurement in his day-to-day job is the fact that tender validity periods of most quotes will be closed at up to 7 to 14 days. This is a major factor for staff. They need to be quick, they need to be agile, they need to be nimble to get quotes. And to receive 2 quotes in this current market is often quite not achievable. When you're talking about niche products in particular, there's often 1, maybe 2 suppliers to come back to you. But majority of the time, you don't even get a response as well. So while the intent by Councillor Bowman is true and he's trying to do the best thing, it's just ill-informed and it's just not correct in this current market, so therefore I can't support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Johnson, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, Mr Mayor, tonight I asked through you for the CEO to give us advice. I think on something very technical like this, that really is down at the operational level, even though it is a policy, we do need to seek advice from the CEO. And the CEO has advice that this is not the time for this. It's a very challenging market, and I think we need to follow the CEO's advice. And that's it was in line with what Councillor Congerson said, and it's in line with what Councillor Parry said. And I know in my world of work, it is extremely difficult to get resources. It's extremely difficult to get people. Prices are going up all the time, so I think to make this adjustment at this point is not so good. I think maybe we can try this in about a year's time, and I think that's what the CEO said. So, councillors, with regret, I suggest we don't support this now, but we look at it again in a year's time when it comes up for review again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Any other speakers for or against? Being no other speakers, Councillor Bowman, you have the right to reply. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, Councillor Kiley talked about tender processes. I'm sorry, this is a procurement policy we're talking about. Tenders have a whole legislation requirements. Let's park that because that's got nothing to do with what we're debating here. He talked about favourable treatment. I think he was probably mistaken because he was talking about tenders. But I'm not suggesting favourable treatment. But what I'm saying is let's give our ratepayers, our businesses that reside, that operate within the City of Swan, a chance to get some of our business. I'm not going out there and saying, boy, you know, we got this price. I'm saying for 5,000 widgets, how much? We talk about, and I heard about in this climate, councillors, there's more than what we purchase than just building. We purchase widgets and gidgets and gadgets. It could be coffee, it could be pen, it could be paper. Pretty easy to get more than one quote. I heard about the specialty. Well, councillors, there's a thing in the Act called a sole supplier. That's another whole kettle of what you need to do. And if it's a sole supplier, that even avoids having to go to tender, councillor. I don't think it's that difficult. I keep hearing we should do it in 6 months' time or 12 months' time, and if we keep saying that, we'll never get to it. We need to be looking at our financial controls. This provides the financial controls. Yes, it will change the requirements of what staff have to do, but I can tell you, if I go buy something $200,000, I don't just get one quote. I spent $50,000 on a car and I shopped around and got quotes. So I knew I was getting the best value. How do we know we're getting the best value when we're buying something that's $200,000 and we try and get 3 quotes but we only get 1 quote? I can't tell you how we do that. Hopefully staff can, but I haven't seen evidence of it.
Thank you, councillors, and I'm now going to put the motion. Those councillors in favour of Councillor Bowman, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Knight, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Richardson and Councillor Podovnik. My count is 7. Therefore, the motion is lost and all the other councillors are against. You get those names? Thank you, Megan. Thank you. That takes us to the next item, councillors. Yes, sorry. Yes, sorry. Councillor Congerton. Thank you.
To move the officer's recommendation.
Have a seconder. Councillor Johnson. You wish to debate it, councillors? Anyone against? You wish to debate it? I'm now going to put the motion as moved by Councillor Congerton, which is the officer's recommendation. Those in favour of Councillor Jones, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Kiley, Councillor Congerton, myself, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Richardson, Councillor McCulloch, Councillor Parry, and the motion is passed. Do you get those names, Megan or Amanda? Thank you. That takes us to the next item, councillors. Item 2.2, proposed policy use of pesticides. It's on page 13 of the run sheet and 94 of the agenda. Councillor Bowman.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to move that Council not endorse the attached council policy for use of pesticides on city assets for community consultation. Request the CEO to widely consult with relevant environmental, let's get rid of the word focus, City of Swan community groups on the city operational procedures for the use of the pesticides, and then 3 and 4 as I've got on the board. So I'm just taking that one word focused out.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Henderson. Is anyone against? There is. You wish to debate it? Thank you. You've got 5 minutes. Thank you, Councillor Bowman.
Mr Mayor, I'll take the shortcut version. Councillors, this is not a policy. It doesn't direct staff. You just heard me talk about policies in the last item. What guidance does this give to our staff? If we're looking at what days we should be spraying and we can only spray days ending in Y, that's an administrative process. If we're looking at what type of poison spray we should be using, that's an administrative process. Let's leave it to the CEO, let's leave it to the staff to deal with this item. Let's not create a policy for the sake of creating a policy that we can say, look at us, we've got a policy on the use of pesticides, when really it's a motherhood statement.
Thank you. Councillor Henderson as a seconder.
Little else to add, councillors. The fact of the matter is that the use of pesticides across the city has been an operational matter for many years, effectively, efficiently, and great saving to our ratepayers over other methods. And I think we should just let staff get on and do their job.
Thank you. Speakers against? Councillor Catalano.
Thank you. A bad policy is better than no policy in this instance. And I say that because herbicides, we spend $500,000 on pesticides annually, and the bulk of that is on herbicides. And I have a lot of complaints about the way the herbicides are used by the city, and I've had a lot of complaints for many years. Actually, and I do remember quite a long time ago, it might have even been about 20 years ago, that the city did actually publish, it was more of a sort of a guideline, I think you might want to call it, and in that guideline it said that herbicides, and we can say pesticides, but I'm going to talk specifically about herbicides tonight because it's the bulk of the pesticide cost. The bulk of the pesticides that are used are the herbicides. That was to be used as a last resort. That was a guideline that the city had 20 years ago. Since then, we've just poured millions of litres of herbicide all over the countryside. Now, you know, it's great to think that this is all going to be done operationally according to what the label says, but I tell you what, many times I've come across, in fact, just opposite the city buildings there one time, a guy just going along with a backpack and just spraying it all over willy-nilly. No signage, no protective gear. I had to actually go down to the city and complain about it. I had people in Lockridge send me photographs only last year or the year before of somebody on a one of those four-wheel buggies with buckets of, the big vats of herbicide between, and they were basically tearing up and down Lockridge streets with a hose sticking out like this. That's herbicide spraying in the city of Swan currently. And yes, I mean, this policy might not give those details, but I tell you what, at least we're getting a step in the right direction, and we can build upon it. So that was that. I mean, it just goes on. I've seen contractors, just with the hose outside their ute on a wet day, where the herbicide just goes straight down the drain and into the wetlands. There are other, and if we don't have this policy, and if we don't actually, my motion that is after this is that we actually adopt this, but that we also put in that first principle that pesticides only be used if other methods of pest and weed control have been proven to be ineffective. That's effectively what the City of Swan had 20 years ago. That's what they had 20 years ago, right? So, it's like, just catching up with the past or something, Back to the Future. Or it's like, what kind of time warp are we in? But let's bring these. We had it then. Let's bring it back because it was a good idea then. It'll be a good idea now. So anyway, just trying to move on a little bit. There's lots of other alternative methods of weed removal, and I have actually undertaken a lot of those in the 30 years.
1 minute left, thank you.
So I just want to say a few things about glyphosate, which is one of the biggest of the herbicide, one of the most readily used. It's an endocrine disruptor. World Health Organization, it's probably carcinogenic in humans. I mean, it's particularly a European Chemicals Agency. It's toxic to aquatic life. It absorbs into the soil and residues persist in the soil for years. I mean, spraying insects, we've seen bees and all kinds of insects disappear because of the spraying of these herbicides. I mean, the thing is that Austria banned it in 2019. Germany is going to ban it in 2023. France, Hungary, the Netherlands, Sweden are assessing whether to ban it or not. The United States, I believe California tried to ban it but was restricted by the Supreme Court. But, you know, United States, many states in the United States are looking at banning it. Now, these are the countries that have banned it. El Salvador, Sri Lanka, Bermuda, Colombia, Vietnam, Mexico and Thailand. This is Australia. I thought we were ahead of the game. I thought we were like progressive and that we were actually looking at ways to look after our planet and look after our environment and look after our insects and look after our children.
Thank you, Catalano. Have you got much left or...?
Oh, I could go on for hours, but I think I've made my point.
Thank you. 5 minutes, thank you. Speaker for the motion. Other speakers against the motion? Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Councillors, it's worth just going back in time to 2020 and just explore how did this end up on the agenda. It's through that process I've mentioned before, councillors, where a member of the community asked me what was the city's policy on pesticides, and I said, I don't know, I'll find out. Asked the CEO, I got told we've got a management practice, but we don't have a policy. I put a question onto Section 10, do we have a policy on the use of pesticides? The answer was no, and I thought, interesting enough. I'll put up a motion for the city to develop a policy on pesticides for the reason that we haven't got one. That was more or less what it was. So, councillors, I don't know much about pesticides, but I have been assured that such a policy is actually quite important, and I truly believe it is. That motion was passed unopposed, so I believe this council does want to have a policy on pesticides. Why do we need a policy and not a management procedure? A policy is a public document that everybody can see out there in community land, and they can see, the City of Swan has a policy. Now, it may not be the most brilliant policy, but if we're putting it out to public consultation, people who are experts in pesticides can give us feedback and say, hey, I think you should do this or you should do that. And that was exactly my purpose. I'm going, I haven't got an axe to grind on pesticides. I just think we need to have a policy. And then people who do know what they're talking about can come in and improve it. So that was the whole concept, councillors. So when my motion is attracting attention like this, I'm quite pleased. I guess the question arises that arose for me was: do other councils out there have pesticide policies? Now, it can be. I didn't need to look to see whether Bassendean had one. I can be absolutely certain the council next door had one. I did actually look in the end councils; they do have one. But as some councillors know, I do use reference councils, external reference councils, to determine are we going in the right direction or not. And I've recently added a new council to my list of reference councils, and you're absolutely right, councillor. It's the City of Stirling. So it has a weed and pesticide pest management policy, and it describes how pesticides will be used in the city. So the city will seek to reduce the use of chemical-based herbicides and pesticides to control weeds and pests. It's basically a pesticide policy. Pesticide notification register, pesticide use notification plan, definitions. So it's maybe a tiny bit more sophisticated than ours, but ours does the job. So if we're asking the question, do other councils have such a thing? Yes, they do. Do we need one? Yes, we do. Has it been asked for? Yes. Let's put it out to consultation and we'll find out what the community think. So councillors, I think this is the sort of thing that a council in 2022 is, we're a bit behind not having one. So it's finally on the agenda after nearly 2 years. I think we need to get on with it. So councillors, I urge you to support, to vote against Councillor Councillor Bowman's motion, and I'll be moving the officer's recommendation, assuming that Councillor Catalanos does not get up. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker for or against the motion? Councillor Kiley.
For the motion, Mayor, and I apologise. I'm a bit not sure which way to go with this one, but I've finally decided that I will support this. Councillor Bowman's motion will require us to go out to community groups, and it will require further expenditure on behalf of the ratepayer to get a review of this policy and thoughts being put forward by community groups or individuals to come up with ways we can improve this policy. I think it's such an important issue that we need to go out and get this done right now, because as you know, we only review our policy every 2 years. This policy, as it sits now, is virtually ineffectual. It will state, it provides some sort of framework, but it doesn't provide any measures for example, as Councillor Catalano pointed out, spraying in the rain. Does the policy mention anything about spraying in the rain? I'm sure the manufacturers' guidelines would say don't do that, but I think we need to state these things clearly in here. Does it say anything about that? And something that wouldn't be in the manufacturer's guidelines would be spraying around schools when school pick-up times and drop-off times around schools. I mean, why are we spraying mist when schools are being near schools, when parents are picking up with children in prams, and there's a lot of movement of young people who are probably more so affected by the likes of glyphosate and so forth. So I think there's a range of measures we can put into this policy fairly soon. We would need to go out to the community. I don't like to, I think having a bad policy might be a good thing for the interim, but it's going to be another 2 years before we get to review this. We need to go out now, talk to the community, see what they want. Issues around spraying at school time. There's going to be a lot of issues to do with that sort of thing. There's the issue of rat sack, which is another pesticide. Do we as a council, when requested, go out and treat rats in the community with rat sack, and then we put at risk the owl population throughout Perth? People need, we should probably be providing leadership on the use of rat sack, for example, where rats come in and eat rat sack, go outside to seek water, local bird population come in and eat, or take the rat home to the nest and kill the whole family of birds in the nest. So we need to be putting these sort of things in this policy. I don't know whether we supply rat sack to affected properties or not, or we use them on our own properties, but we should
Point of order. I've resisted making this point of order.
Resume your seat. Thanks, Councillor Kiley.
Councillor Carley's argument is saying that the policy is not good enough, but you need to read the motion. The motion does not endorse the policy, and it replaces it with an operational procedure. The difference between a policy and operational procedure is the policy is a public document, the operational procedure is not. Yeah. So that's really the point. I think you need to read item 1 and 2 carefully, particularly.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. If you can continue your debate, Councillor Kiley.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, we need to not endorse this at the moment. We will have the option to come back with another policy and develop a policy, a procedure. Either one is going to be better than what we've got here now. Policy or procedure, we need to ask the CEO to go away, make some inclusions in how we deal with pesticides, what we do with pesticides, and get this happening now rather than in 2 years' time. So that's why I'll be supporting this. At some stage we will put a policy out, but I think this just doesn't cut it for me. It lacks the operational direction for staff and for the community as to what we do and what we would accept in terms of in the use of pesticides. Thank you.
Question, Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This was discussed at Council last year, and I'm just wondering if we can recall the date that we put this to Mr. Coaten's team.
I don't recall the date. Mr. Coaten, do you recall the date?
4th of August 2021. It's in the report.
And wasn't it previously the year before as well it was brought up? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers for or against the motion? Councillor Congdon.
I'm against.
Thank you. You have 5 minutes if you wish to use that time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The officer's recommendation talks about a community consultation and then a request to the CEO to bring a report back to Council. Councillor Bowman is not to endorse the attached Council policy for community consultation, but requests the CEO to widely consult with relevant environmental-focused City of Swan community groups. So on one hand, you've got requesting that we go out for public consultation and offers a recommendation. Then we have another one that says don't do that, but go out to a consultation. So I'm a little bit confused about the consultation is a consultation is a consultation. And then there's to environmental-focused City of Swan community groups. I would have thought that this goes a little bit beyond the City of Swan focused environmental groups, because the use of pesticides is commercial and residential across the entire 1,000 square kilometres. Whether you have, Councillor Kylie, rats or no rats, and I'm sure there's rats in Guildford, is that we would all like to, big ones, yes. I don't think an owl around where I live could carry one of the rats we've got to a nest. But the scenario is everyone should have an opportunity to make comment to the proposed policy. And if that commentary sits around, are you spraying near schools, then it needs to be raised. If it's in relation to rats pinching the rat bait, getting swooped up by an owl and stuffed into a nest and killing the babies, that needs to be discussed. One would think that the environmental focused City of Swan community groups just could be talking about the use of a herbicide to kill weeds or roadside stuff and not go on to other parts of the pesticide program. So I think the officers have got it right. Councillor Bowman, I think you've got it half right but half wrong, as you're suggesting, I think, a focused group rather than
Councillor Bowman removed the word focus from his motion, so it now reads as on
Oh, I'm
the
sorry.
screen.
Well, I'm reading on my run sheet and it still has focused.
Yeah, well, he did remove that word, so if I can just direct you to the...
Well, then I'll remove the
Thank
word
you.
focus. So it is to the relevant environmental City of Swan community groups. You must have deleted that after our discussion, Councillor. So anyway, I think the officer's recommendation does it well to go out to everybody, and I think the important part of this, Mr CEO, if this loses and Councillor Catalano's loses, is that we do the right thing by this in terms of its consultation and it gets to reach the wider audience.
Thank you, Councillor Congdon. Any other speakers for or against the motion? No other speakers. Your right to reply. Thanks, Councillor Bowman.
Mr Mayor, it must be getting late, but I heard every person that spoke and I thought they were speaking in favour of my motion. And I'll tell you why, Mr Mayor. For the little that I heard a lot about a pesticide in other countries, so let's put that aside because that's not what this is about. I heard about doing what the label says: no signage, no protection gear, four-wheel drive buggy tearing up the streets and contractors hoses out the youth on a wet day. Councillors, none of that's going to be in a policy. It's as simple as that. It's going to be in a management practice. A policy is to guide strategic. That's what it's about. And councillors, I heard about the concerns of going out and consulting and all that. That's why I've actually put about consulting with the management practice. Unheard of normally. The CEO would probably hate me for it. But what I'm saying is, hey, we've got some great staff here that might know their stuff. There's some even better people out there too that may be able to help us and guide us in that. If we go out with a policy, they're only going to give us feedback on that high-level strategic stuff. What I'm saying is, I know it's important to a number of people. I know that people want to be involved. So let's get involved in that administrative process. We talked about how there were some councils, other councils have policies. Well, I too do my research and homework, but I know a little bit more, and I know why some of those councils have those policies. And getting feedback from them, they give no guidance. The staff have indicated to me it gives them no guidance, but guess what? It kept people happy. Why are we putting a policy up for the sake of policy, councillor? That's what I'm saying. I'm actually saying all those other issues that have been raised would be addressed in the management practice. I'm saying going out and consult with the community groups who know what they are, and focus is not there. So please vote for my motion.
Thank you. I'm now going to put the motion. Those in favour of Councillor Bowman, Councillor Kiley, Councillor Knight, Councillor Zanino and Councillor Henderson. That's 5. The motion is lost. There's 10 against. Did you get those names? Thank you, Megan. Yes? You want me to call it again? Those in favour, you just ask to raise your hands again. So in favour were Councillor Bowman, Councillor Kiley, Councillor Knight, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Henderson. The motion is lost 5 to 10. Councillor Catalano, you have a foreshadowed motion.
Thank you. Mine is basically to endorse the council policy for the use of pesticides on city assets for community consultation. And I just wanted to add one thing, and that was sort of under point 1 purpose, that pesticides, and this is a sort of overarching principle, pesticides, including herbicides, will only be used if other methods of pest or weed control have been proven to be ineffective.
Thank you. And your reason?
And the reason is the budget allocated for pesticides may be better spent elsewhere. There are conflicting reports about the safety of pesticides, especially herbicides, including glyphosate, used in residential areas, and you could also put around schools.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Knight. Is there anyone against? There is. Do you wish to debate it, councillors? You do. Thank you. Councillor Catalano, you can open your debate,
thank
please.
you. Well, I just want to follow on from the previous discussion about policy and an operational kind of document. Well, the thing is, we've got to start somewhere with a policy, and because that is a public document and it gives the public some idea about how we regard and how we use, maybe not so much use, but the sort of overarching principles of our use of herbicide. Now, I do take on board the idea that, or the ideas raised, and I agree with them, that in fact we do need to have much more operational information in the policy, perhaps through a management plan or a management document, however you want to call that, guidance document that actually is connected to the policy, and that's generally how it works. You have a policy and all your other documents, your operational documents, come off the policy, because the policy is the overarching document that whereby all the other operational bits and pieces and details come off. And all those operational aspects have to sort of conform to the policy. That's the way policies work. That's the hierarchy. And we've seen it so many times in the city with different documents. So we do have to start thinking about, there's heaps of information out there about how harmful pesticides are. I mean, they kill living things. So obviously, at the end of the day, increasing amounts of residue in the soil and water and the air obviously is going to affect humans as well. I mean, it just goes to reason, and then it's going to affect our soil, it's going to affect all the other living things that we rely on, and all the other living things that we just enjoy the company of. And that includes flora and fauna. And, we do have to start thinking, because we've been using these herbicides now for quite a long time, probably, near on 50 years, and then I guess before that we used some even more seriously harmful herbicides, thinking that it was okay, DDT and various other ones, realising that, hey, that's a bit of a problem. And that's the whole thing about herbicides and pesticides, and we do have to be cautious about the way we use them. We can possibly, and that's what my motion's about. It's about, first, let's just make sure that what we're going to use, that there's not another way of using the money, how it can be spent, the money that we're going to allocate towards weed control or pest control, that actually there isn't another way that's just as effective. And, that we only then resort to using poisons, which is effectively what we're talking about, poisons that kill living beings, that we only use those if we've got no other alternative. And as I said before, that was the guiding principles that the City of Swan had some decades ago, and I think that's the ones that we should stick with, because
you have 1 minute left.
They mean that the levels of these poisons won't continue to accumulate in our soils and in our waters and in our bodies. And, we've got to sort of curtail, like with most of the industrial, ways and ways of living that we've got used to. It's not going to go on forever. We do have to start thinking about curtailing our impact on the planet and on the environment, and pulling it back to using these poisons only when necessary, or when any alternative for other methods of pest or weed control have been proven to be ineffective.
Thank you. Councillor Knight as a seconder.
Yeah, I have nothing to add, thank you.
Thank you. Speakers against. Councillor Bowman.
I have a question, Mr Mayor.
Okay, I'll take the question first, and you'll be next, Councillor Bowman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr Mayor, through to Mr Coaten. Councillor Catalano's, under the word purpose, suggest other methods of weed control that have been proven to be ineffective. Do we use any other form of control that has been effective other than what we have now in a herbicide?
Yes, we do. We do use a variety of other treatments, and I think on page 94 some of those are outlined. We have tried steam treatment, manual removal, mechanical methods, etc. So there are some other methods that are used.
Further question. And in terms of cost, Mr Coaten, which is the most effective and cost effective for the city?
Well, it would depend on the circumstances, but for the majority of, if you're talking in relation to herbicides, the majority of it is chemical.
Sorry, Councillor Bowman. Sorry, Councillor Kiley. Councillor Bowman seemed a bit disappointed I took one question first, so I'm going to allow him to have his debate, and then I'll take your question. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, Councillor Congdon's already stole my thunder, but councillors, this is not about a policy anymore. This is about either increasing the budget or reducing our weed control. Because councillors, I reckon if we ask Mr Coaten what's proven to be ineffective, he won't say steam, he won't say manual. You can go steam it 10 times, you can go do it manual, but it'll cost a lot more. So is the budget going to stay the same and we're going to have a lot less weed control, or is the budget going to go significantly up? Now, councillors, we all talked about a 0% rate increase, we all talk about reducing our operating. Here we're actually talking about increasing it. We can't have both, councillors. Again, I hear about saving the planet. I agree. And being less of an issue with poisons and all that, a policy's not going to cover that. What this policy is doing is saying we will not use herbicides and pesticides unless it's the last resort. Where are those costs coming from, councillors? What are you going to choose of not actually doing weed control? Because we'll probably do 1/10 the amount of weed control that we're doing, or we need 10 times more the budget. So in case of that, where is those money coming from? Councillors, it's not just about a policy now.
Thank you. Councillor Kiley. Thank you. Speakers for or against the motion, councillors? Councillor Congdon, I saw you first. You're speaking
Against.
against. Thank you.
Look, I can't support a policy that starts to depict that we need to use all other methods that could be effective rather than the one that is effective. I can't imagine us in 1,000 square kilometres sending out steam trucks to every nook and cranny on our roadsides and verges, trying to eradicate the weeds that we amass right across our large city domain. And the irony is, it's like we had the rat discussion a minute ago, and that kind of echoes down my head a little bit, because I've got those little shocking little creatures that run across my roof, in my roof, and I don't know of any way to stop them other than to initiate a poison treatment. I've tried talking to them, but they completely ignore me, and they just continue to do what they want to do. So I'm still back in favour with the officer's recommendation, and let the people tell us what they want to do. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson, do you have your hand up?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, councillors, this is about a policy. So as I understand it, the hierarchy is right at the top of the hierarchy. We have a policy, then we have a management practice, then we have procedures, and I guess we have work instructions. So as a council, we concern ourselves with policy. It's up to the CEO and his staff to determine what the next layers down are. Management practices, procedures and work instructions are really somewhat out of our scope. Other questions arisen as to whether Councillor Catalano's proposed purpose would have some major impact. Look, first of all, the first response to that is this is going out to community consultation. So everybody will be able to have a response, and if they think that ain't going to work, then we can hear from them. And we've also heard that other methods have been tried. So we're exploring, but who knows, of the other methods that have been tried and have been proved ineffective, who knows, some other new method may turn up and may become effective. So right now, if we went along with this, we could say that, well, hand weeding, slashing, steaming and other things are not effective. Is this statement of purpose reasonable? Well, I can compare and contrast with City of Stirling. It says the city will seek to reduce the use of chemical-based herbicides and pesticides to control weeds and pests and replace with an environmentally sustainable alternative where practicable and within financial resources. Well, that seems very similar to that, although this doesn't mention the financial aspect of it. I think it's in line with what is expected in this day and age. People are wanting to reduce the use of herbicides and pesticides, and well, let's find out if out there in community land that's the case. As Councillor Catalano pointed out, and she knows more about this than me, remember the whole DDT thing back in the 1960s? I remember reading a book, I think it was it Rachel Carson's Silent Spring? I didn't get all the way through it. I think I only read about the first third because it was a bit out of my area of expertise, but what that told me at that time was that this is something we need to pay attention to. Just to address Councillor Congleton's interesting issue with rats. So earlier on in the debate, he mentioned we have a bit of a rat problem in Guildford. I just have to tell him the last time I was called a rat was in 2017, so just before the election.
Some of mine your ways, Councillor.
I'm sorry, Councillor Congleton, that the rats are not responding to the policy in your area. The policy is not stopping the rats in your roof, but trust me, I've got the same problem. Look, we do need to use pesticides and herbicides from time to time, and I know in my home I do my best not to, but I think we're looking at a bigger target here. We're looking at the whole 1,024 square kilometres of the city, at least the parts that we, as a city, as a council, control. And I think that's why we need to look at reducing the use of pesticides where possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker against the motion, Councillor Henderson.
Councillors, I could probably take a half an hour on this one. But
you have 5 minutes, Councillor.
I have 5 minutes. Thank you for reminding me.
20 minutes till 10 o'clock. Thank you.
Mayor, one of the things I heard in the previous debate on the previous motion that was said that we can progress this progressively and build on it. In other words, the motion that staff have put up is one thing, and now we see Councillor Catalano wanting to progress this in a manner that will cost the ratepayers staggering sums of money. And I say that because it's already been picked up on. Will only be used if other methods of pest or weed control have been proven effective. So the point is, you've got to do all those other ones first. This is in the purpose. That is just absolutely crazy. Now, we know you can use solarisation as an example. Again, it's a process that takes time, it needs a lot of management if the plastics get blown away in the wind. Susanna Brook, for instance, are doing a solarisation program at the moment to see how effective that can be before they do a tree planting. So I want to go to a couple of little issues about what this is all about. This is all about glyphosate. That's where it all came from. It's all about glyphosate. And the fact of the matter is that too many people seem to think that glyphosate is a nasty poison. Well, at a certain stage it can be dangerous. If you eat 300 grams of salt, that's a lethal dose. If you take 600 grams of glyphosate, that's a legal dose. Just shows you how dangerous salt is. The point is that once this stuff hits the ground, within next to no time it becomes a salt and is effectively inert apart from adding some salt to the surface, and it's a tiny amount. Now, in the 80s, I knew the chief scientist of Ciba-Geigy here in Perth. He and I had lengthy discussions about the use of, in this particular case, glyphosate, herbicide, and lots of papers were read and the like. The point I want to make about this is that glyphosate is extremely safe. So safe that it's used by the millions of gallons worldwide, and it does it effectively. It makes our crops viable. It makes more food available by killing weeds to the millions of people that need food. When I go down the path of saying, oh, you can't spray this stuff, or use some exciting words like someone's riding down the road with a quad bike and spraying a weed, well, hey, I actually use a quad bike to run around my block and spray herbicide. Now, I might be spraying Fusilade. Well, I'll tell you what, if I'm spraying Fusilade, I'll be fully covered because that is a dangerous product. But when I spray glyphosate, all I wear is a pair of gloves. And that, in fact, is the management practice for glyphosate. Very, very safe. We could talk about that all day. Did you know that if you plough the surface of the land, you actually destroy the makeup of the bacterial base in the soil? If you spray it, you don't cause anywhere near the amount of damage to the soil subsurface biology. One of the reasons you use glyphosate. We can go on and on and on. Sterling, their argument is we're practical. What we're saying here is we've got to discount all the others first. Well, that's not practical. Councillors, this motion...
You have 1 minute left, thank you.
Thank you. This council's got to be put down because it will cost staggering amounts of money for absolutely zero gain. There's been nothing proven about glyphosate being dangerous. The stories I hear about poison and people dying from the use of it, rubbish. It's been dispelled. The payouts by Ciba-Geigy in America have only been to basically put it to bed before it ended up in court. So I think the term is go away money. So the fact of the matter is, use sensibly, and our staff will, I'm sure, use it sensibly. It is a very safe product. We can talk about all the other pesticides, but I haven't got time. Councillors, the officer's recommendation is our next move. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Richardson, I saw your hand go up earlier.
I had a question for Mr. Coaten, please, through you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Last year in August, we debated this in depth again, and the question was, we were waiting for, I think it was the second stage of the steaming process, to get the results back from the trial that was being done, and I don't recall that we've had that report back, unless I'm wrong, that the gentleman that gave us the, they were in the middle of the trial, and I think it was stage 2 or something, they didn't have the results yet to give us. So we've been through all of these points, and I'm just wondering from Mr. Coaten, did we get those results in the end from that steaming process they were going through?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. In last year, it wasn't actually a debate; it was a briefing session on, and this was and this exact same policy was presented to council. There were a number of comments in relation to that, but what the overall consensus of council was that the policy in its form be brought back to council to make a decision in terms of the way forward. In relation to the specific trial that was discussed, I'd have to go back and check my notes in relation to that, but it wasn't a debate. It was just a briefing session, and staff presented this draft policy, and the consensus of council was to bring it to a meeting.
Thank you. Any other councillors wish to enter the debate? Councillor Kiley.
Just quickly, Mayor, I want to draw council.
Just quickly, I want to draw councillors' attention to page 98 of the policy, 2.2 C and D, and I think in the policy that's proposed, it captures the intent of Councillor Catalano's intention in her motion. It says that C, pesticide choice shall consider product effectiveness, holistic impacts and cost. I think that sums up the consideration from a budgetary perspective that we need to consider as well when we're dealing with ratepayers' money. And point D, alternative treatments to maximise new technologies shall be trialled where appropriate. Now, that's going in the right direction as far as I'm concerned, and I think it covers the intent of Councillor Catalano's motion somewhat, not completely, but I can't support the motion as it's worded at the moment. I would have supported something with the addition of or deemed cost prohibitive by council, but I appreciate the intent of the amendment, but I think we need to move forward with the policy as it is and make changes after community feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Any other speakers for or against the motion? No other speakers. Then Councillor Catalano, you have 3 minutes for a right of reply. Please.
All right, thank you. Well, look, I mean, if talking to the rats isn't effective, guess what? You get out the rat sack and you poison them. Right, I mean, that's what this motion's all about. That's what this overarching policy guideline is all about. And I mean, I just don't know how you can come in here and say it's going to be staggering amounts of ratepayers' money when you don't actually. I don't have those facts before me. I actually don't have those facts before me. How do you know? If you haven't tried it, how do you know how staggering those amounts of money are going to be to the ratepayers? How do we know that actually ratepayers aren't going to save money? Have you ever contemplated that? That you might actually try something different by adopting a different strategy, having a different overarching kind of principle, and you might save money. I don't know why we always have to be so resistant to trying out new things, because ultimately we are going to have to do it anyway. Councillors like Sterling, they know it. We're going to follow, we will follow. Just mark my words, it's just the start, because it's not going to go away. And you know why it's going to go away? Because the science is not conclusive, and I haven't seen too much science that's conclusively saying, you know what, it's as safe, it's just a salt. NaCl, I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, I can go into some of the products that's in there, but it's not a salt. And it's not conclusive, because I've got the reports in front of me as well, and they're saying that actually they're potentially very harmful to humans. So, you know, let's be cautious in our approach. Let's start now. I'm always saying in this council, let's start making the changes now because we're going to have to do it anyway. You don't know.
1 minute left, thank you.
You don't know actually whether you'll be actually saving staggering sums of ratepayers' money, or in fact whether you will be spending until you try. Now, what I'm talking about is other forms of weed control or pest control aren't effective, then you use the poisons. But if others are effective, then you just carry on using those ones that you've trialled. And yes, you will trial. And thank you, Councillor Kylie, you talked about, you know, the fact there's these trials and there's this other thing, but it doesn't go far enough, because what you've got when you've got a statement like this at the top of your policy, it gives you overarching guidance, it gives you overarching principles that actually basically determines the sort of the intent and the language and the kind of meaning of your document. And I think that actually our ratepayers would really be pleased to see that we're actually starting to move in a more progressive development of that with taking...
Thank you, Councillor Catalano. Councillors, I'm now going to put the motion before you that's on the whiteboard, the motion of Councillor Catalano. Those in favour? Of Councillor Johnson, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Knight and Councillor Richardson. Councillor Prodovnik, which is 6. The motion is lost. Did you get those names? Thank you, Megan. Councillor Congdon, do you foreshadow the officer's recommendation?
No, Councillor Johnson did.
Okay, I thought you said it in your debate, and you were first. So, Councillor Johnson.
Move the officer's recommendation, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Yep. Councillor McCulloch. Is there anyone against? What would be the amendment, Councillor Henderson?
In the policy, under part 2.1e, remove the word or herbicide after pesticide. Under 2.2, use of pesticides, remove and herbicides. And under 2.3a, after the word pesticides, remove and herbicides. And under B, the same, remove and herbicides. And the reason is that under 2.1b, pesticides, it's already in the policy statements, without limitation, herbicides, insecticides, fungicides, it goes on to say what a pesticide is. So these words following in the later parts of the policy document are effectively surplus because it's already dealt with under 2.1b.
Thank you. I'll just ask the mover and the second if that's acceptable to them or not.
No, it's not, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Do you wish to debate it, Councillor Henderson? Thank you. I think this will be the last item for the evening. Thank you, councillors, if you wish to shut at 10 o'clock, but that's a decision council can make after this item. So you may open your debate. Thank you, Councillor Johnson.
Amendment, Mr Mayor, isn't it?
Oh, sorry.
Seconder for the amendment.
Yes, Councillor McCulloch. They've declined your amendment, Councillor Henderson, so you can open your debate.
Okay. Just briefly, councillors, the purpose of the policy is quite clear. It's outlined. It quite clearly says what a pesticide is, and we then go on to talk about herbicides specifically after the word pesticides, but we don't talk about insecticide, fungicide, in other words, why are we just putting one part of it in when one word describes it? That's my reason for the amendment.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, I forgot to get a seconder for the amendment. No, I thought Councillor McCulloch was seconder for Councillor Johnson's motion, which is the officer's recommendation. I got a little bit confused. So, do I have a seconder for Councillor Henderson's amendment to remove the word herbicide? Councillor Bowman. As the seconder, Councillor Bowman. I'm sorry I got slightly out of order. Do you wish to enter the debate? No. Speaker against the amendment? Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, my reason is that I don't believe that we should be editing this document in this quite radical way at this stage before going out to consultation. I think that we should receive the feedback and the staff could take this into consideration. So that's why I'm opposing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers for or against? No other speakers for the amendment. Councillor Henderson, your right to reply. Thank you. Nothing further. I'm going to put the amendment. Councillors, I just want to make sure this is for the amendment, which is to remove the word herbicide in, I think, the 3 locations that Councillor Henderson indicate, 4 locations as indicated by Councillor Henderson in the policy. Those in favour of Councillor Jones, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Podovnik and Councillor Parry, which I believe is 6. The amendment fails. We're now back to the substantive motion and we haven't started debate. So Councillor Johnson, it's your motion if you wish to speak.
Yeah, just briefly, Mr Mayor. I think, I think it's an excellent policy the staff have put together. It's a draft. The purpose is to go out to consultation with the community, with the broad community. Everybody gets to have input. To me, this is the culmination of nearly 2-year journey, probably longer than 2 years. If I start off with the original question that was brought to me by a member of community, do we have a pesticide or herbicide policy? And I had to ask myself, have we got one? So here we are. It's great to see it's probably going to go out. So, councillors, I urge you to vote for this. I think a modern council would have a pesticide policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McCulloch is the seconder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, it's all fairly straightforward in the report. We've got some comprehensive details, consultation, detailed, and staff have looked at a range of products. They have consulted consistently with community, and we have a fairly rigorous policy here before us. So I urge you to vote in favour.
Thank you. Speaker against the motion? Any other speakers for or against the motion? No speakers against Councillor Johnson. There is no need for a right of reply because there's nothing to debate against. So I'm now going to put the motion. Those in favour of the officer's recommendation. I have Councillor Jones, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Kiley, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Congadin, myself, Councillor Knight, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Richardson, Councillor McCulloch, Councillor Podovnik, Councillor Parry and Councillor Bowman. I think that's unanimous now. Thank you, councillors. I note the time is just before 10 p.m. I'm looking for a resolution from a councillor whether you wish to proceed with this meeting or do you wish to draw to a conclusion.
I move to proceed, Mr Mayor, for another half hour.
Okay. Do I have?
It's been a very long night.
Well, hang on. I've got a motion from Councillor Johnson. He wishes to continue for another half an hour. Do I have a seconder? Being no seconder, the motion lapses. Councillors, items that we have not finished tonight include items 4.9, 5.3, 5.4, 5.5, 6.9 and item C 1.2, item C 1.3. Councillor Kiley, did you indicate earlier you wish to withdraw that item? Yeah. Thank you. Item C 1.4, which I believe may be, item 6.9 may be confidential. So, councillors, if we don't finish or we're not proceeding past this time now, I'll need a motion that all those unfinished items be remain on until the next council meeting in April, and they'll go to the items left over. So moved Councillor Bowman, seconded Councillor Jones. Is there anyone against? You wish to debate it, Councillor Johnson?
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I think we yes, I do.
Thank you. Councillor Bowman, thank you.
Mr Mayor, Councillor Congler did a pretty smart move this afternoon, this evening. He moved those motions up the order that we needed to deal with tonight. He obviously predicted that perhaps we wouldn't get through them all. He was right, and as such, we don't need to deal with any of these items that I can see in the next week or so, and postponing them to next month seems fairly reasonable.
Thank you. Councillor Jones is a seconder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just have a question of the CEO. Is there anything that we have not covered tonight that is crucial to cover?
I think his answer was no.
That's fine, then I don't have anything else to say. Thank you.
Okay, Speaker against, Speaker against the motion, Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, my concern is this, councillors. Between the 2nd of March and the next meeting, which is on the 6th of April, that's 5 weeks. So what that means is we're going to end up with I would imagine a 25% greater agenda, because the staff will have an extra week to put items on the agenda. In addition, we are putting, it sounded like about 5 or 6 additional items onto that 6th of April agenda. My concern is that this will happen again. So my view is that we should vote against this motion to simply put these motions onto the 6th, the OCM on the 6th of April, and I propose that we look at an alternative date within the next week, such as tomorrow. Although I realise some councillors may have business, but I don't think it's an EMRC tomorrow. So I'm voting against.
It is the EMRC.
It is, okay. In which case we need to look for another date.
Thank you.
Mr
Speaker,
Mayor, can I ask the motion be put?
You can. Do I have a seconder that the motion be put? Councillor Jones. Is there anyone against? Well, I'll put the motion, and I need 11. Miss Albrecht. Okay, those in favour that the motion be put, raise your hand. I have Councillor Jones, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Kiley, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Congdon, myself, Councillor McCulloch, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Brodovnik, and I can't see Councillor Parry. Yes? That's 11, so I'm going to put the motion, councillors, that all items that remain unfinished be held over to the next ordinary council meeting in April. Those in favour? I can't see Councillor Parry. Yes, it is all in favour other than Councillor Henderson and Councillor Johnson. That motion is carried. I therefore declare this meeting closed or suspended until this one's closed at 4 minutes after 10. I thank you all for your attendance, councillors, and your perseverance. And